Whick put in the title, this might end up being Drew, Pavlo, and Tali versus Whick and the entire audience. But Drew is like a former lefty activist, always an anti-communist, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hello,
cool. So
sorry
maybe you
about that,
can
guys. I apologize.
introduce yourself then properly. Tell us a little bit about
No
who you
worries.
are.
No worries. So, I have a very long and winding political journey. I started when I was 19. I held a protest at the University of Queensland, which is my college in Brisbane, Australia. My protest was against the Chinese Communist Party, and I was supporting the Hong Kong protesters who were going at the same time. And my university had a really strong relationship with China. Economically, it was worth like 20% of the university's budget. So when I did that protest, they cracked down on me really hard. The Chinese government actually released articles in state media calling for me to be expelled from the university. And then the university actually went through with that, and they spent about $500,000 in Australian taxpayer money to try expel me. And basically, that was my introduction to politics. From the very start, I was sort of like attacked really viciously by people on the far left, even though I identified as like a Bernie type guy when I started out. I think just because like the issue of China is coded as conservative because Trump was talking about China as well. And unfortunately, as a result, I basically got really brutally smashed for years by the far left. And that was my experience. That's what sort of made me a hardcore, I mean, not hardcore, but that's what made me very strongly an anti-communist. I never would have necessarily started out as I would not have even described myself necessarily as an anti-communist when I started out. It was more out of a sort of, I mean, my views when I started out were kind of like Amnesty International style, upset with China's human rights record. It was more coming from a sort of like general humanitarian position. And I still, of course, care about human rights and humanitarian stuff and everything, of course. But I would say that my politics actually evolved into like basically hardline anti-communism because of my experiences with tankies, years and years of these people cheering on death threats against my family. I was assaulted multiple times. Every time I was physically assaulted, they cheered on. I had a number of death threats and bomb threats sent against my family. My brother is a college soccer player in America. He had the FBI visit his college dorm room because they did bomb threats in his. They did bomb threats in his name to LAX. And he's not even living in LA, and obviously he was cleared like almost immediately. But they did that to my mum as well, death threats and bomb threats. They got me swatted. I was protesting outside the Chinese embassy in London, and I got swatted essentially. The Chinese embassy carried out a bomb threat in my name and reported me to the police, and I was arrested as a terror suspect and held incommunicado with no access to lawyers or anything for like 24 hours, which was obviously extremely confronting and scary. And this was basically enough for me over many years to see how brutal the far left is. These people were cheering it on the whole time, everything terrible that happened to me. And eventually I just decided, like, these people are evil and they want me to be dead, and I'm not suicidal, so therefore I am an anti-communist. And that's how I sort of became really hard line against the far left. It was literally just a response to my experiences. And of course, I was really sickened by world events, especially over the past 2 years, like since October 7, seeing how people immediately celebrated that. And it was mostly the same people who I knew like supported the Chinese government's actions in Tibet and all these horrible things. Mostly the same sorts of tankies. The people like Jackson Hinkle, basically. And the way that they all celebrate October 7, and even just the fact that I had a lot of progressive friends at university who immediately celebrated it. I mean, I just saw all the atrocities as they took place unfolding live. Like I was glued to Twitter that entire day. I was watching the imagery that showed Hamas massacring people, etc. Just the piles of there was one image that I'll never forget. It's the piles of elderly people, the piles of corpses outside the bus station in southern Israel when they just drove past the bus station and just massacred a bunch of elderly people.
Yeah, that's
standing to the bus station.
Yeah, it's all.
So this was,
yeah,
sorry, you go, Whick.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's just like yeah, I understand. Look, when it comes to like being anti-communist, I'm with you, brother. Okay, me too.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm curious, right? So I hear you're against all these things, but if I asked you, Drew, what are you for? What would you answer me?
I would say I'm for Western civilization. I like the way of life.
What does that mean?
Our culture, our way of life, democracy, freedom, the ability to choose your own path in life. I love Australia. I love America. I love Europe. I love these countries, the culture that they've contributed to the world. I love their people. And I just see the fact that people on the far left want to destroy all these things that I love. They want to destroy, the culture of these places. They want to destroy. They are very open. They literally say that that they want October 7th for Australia and America, all these so-called settler colonies, etc. And that's what made me so hardline against them. Like I love Western civilization, Western culture, freedom, democracy, and I see that these people want to destroy it, and I'm opposed to them for that. And I want to have a safe, prosperous, peaceful society for people to live in. I want people to be able to raise families and have their own homes. And I look at, for example, Singapore. I think is a really good model. Singapore, where they have a safe society. It is relatively free, and they don't have crazy Islamic extremists everywhere. They don't have terrible crime. It's a safe, peaceful, orderly society, and people are able to pursue their own ends and have their own families. And it's a beautiful, nice society. That's the type of thing that I look to, and I think I would love to see that more in the West.
Okay, Singapore is an interesting example. I'm not too familiar with like the demographics and the size of it and things like that, but I do worry whenever someone is like, "Well, we can just take a single culture or a single nation's model and we can extrapolate that into places like Australia or America or Britain or
Yeah,
wherever." So, like, my
I do want to.
question, just real
Yeah,
quick,
yeah,
real quick. My question is, how do we get from where we are now to this place that you want to be, right? What are some of the major steps that you would advocate for to get from wherever we are, you think we are now in the West, to where you think we should be? What how
yeah,
do we get there?
yeah, sure. So, I talked a little bit about my foreign policy, wh- what I'm opposed to, and I'm essentially opposed to sort of like third worldist, sort of anti-Western resentment politics, this sort of growing axis of China, Russia, Iran. That's what I'm really against at a foreign policy level. When it comes to domestic politics, Tali has probably seen me talk about this a little bit. I talk about something called dark abundance. And essentially, the idea is I really like Ezra Klein's vision of abundance, where you are very pro economic growth. You want widespread prosperity. You want public goods. You want state capacity to achieve public goods. So you want beautiful, clean public transport for everybody that's free. You want to have You want to have big infrastructure projects. All these things. I love the abundance vision. Cheap housing so that people can raise their families. All this stuff, of course, that's what I really like at a domestic level. But where I sort of differ more from somebody like, for example, Ezra Klein, is I think they don't take into account the public goods associated with high trust societies, that are associated with low crime, high trust societies. And so I think you have to have a basic level of order in a society for it to function, a basic level of peace. You can't have things like, for example, the murder of Erna, that young
Oh
Ukrainian
yeah, it
woman
was
on the train
horrific.
in
Yeah.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
So Noah Smith wrote about this. He's a liberal thinker that I like, and Mick Solana as well wrote about this in the Atlantic. I think essentially the idea is that abundance is a great vision, but you need to take into account things. You need to take into account non-economic goods for non-economic public goods. Essentially, stuff like high trust, social cohesion, a
So how do we
basic
get
level
that?
of state. Yes. So this is where I think you need to have extremely harsh punishments for crime, really strict punishments for crime.
Like what?
Um,
Give me like you're
like,
talking in
for example,
generalities.
yeah,
I
yeah.
want
I'll give you an example.
specifics. Okay,
So,
someone goes
so
onto a bus. Someone goes onto a
yeah,
bus and starts acting up, acting a fool. They don't hurt anyone, but they're
yeah,
jumping seats or harassing people.
yeah.
What happens to that
Great
person in
example.
your society?
Great example. Yeah, great example. I think people like that who are obviously extremely mentally ill, they need to be basically taken care of in uh, mental health care institutions. And obviously the asylum system in the 70s and stuff like that was messed up. That's not what I'm necessarily advocating for. But what I'm saying is it's actually less humane to let extremely mentally ill people sort of like just wander the streets until they either get killed or kill somebody. I think that's actually extremely inhumane. You look at the case of Erna, that man who slaughtered her was pretty obviously extremely mentally ill. And I think it's horrible that he was just allowed to basically roam the streets. And it's dangerous for society. And it's also even dangerous for the extremely mentally ill people themselves, because they can also be the victim of crime. And they can also, I mean, look at, for example, the case of Daniel Penny. I think it's sad that the guy died. And the reason why that guy died was because he was an extremely mentally ill person, sort of just roaming around the streets. He wasn't really able to actually look after himself. He wasn't actually really able to live in society in a safe way. It's not safe for the public. It's also not safe for these guys as well, because they can also be victims of crime when you're extremely mentally ill and you're not able to really look after yourself. So I think you need to rebuild the mental health care systems in Western countries. It seems to be the case that America really needs to basically consider somehow, like, when there are people who are just extremely mentally ill roaming the streets, they can't just be basically allowed to be homeless and just wandering around either killing people or being killed themselves. They have to basically be in care. And like the guy who killed Erna, realistically, if 5 years ago he had been put into a care place and he was just put on medication and given a bunch of coloring books,
Sure.
he's not going to have killed somebody in cold blood. He's also probably not going to face the death penalty for what he's done. So I think when you have crazy people just roaming the streets, you just can't have that. My mum, so as you know, my brother lives in America. I think he's married to an American citizen or something like that. You know, he's lived there for a couple of years now, and legally migrated the right way and everything. My mum goes over to visit him sometimes for a holiday. She was in Wall Street. I think it was like October last year. She literally went to Wall Street, which is of course like a really famous tourist area of New York City. You would think it's pretty safe. My mum from Australia, and it's funny, my mum's like a conservative. She's like a big Trump supporter and everything. And she was sort of aghast at just like how the sort of mental health care system works in America, where it is obviously
It's hard.
a pretty dog-eat-dog society in a way.
Yeah.
Like, my mum's pretty conservative, but she thinks that America's potentially too dog-eat-dog. Like, I remember when I went to New York City a couple of years ago, like, the inequalities are quite extreme. And when she was on Wall Street with her partner, she was actually, like, a mentally ill homeless guy jumped out and started jacking off in front of her. And like, that's my mum, who's gone to America to visit her son as a tourist. And she loves America.
It's inappropriate. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I get it.
And so this stuff is real. And basically all my friends who live in America have so many stories like this. My brother has stories like this where it's pretty unsafe sometimes to go on the train. I've got I'm friends with Shark Zadeh, who's like a really funny, interesting Muslim thinker in New York City, and even he's like, yeah, you just can't have these insane mentally ill people walking around on the streets lighting people on fire.
Yeah, I get it.
He hates the chaos.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's what I'd say. You need a proper mental health care system.
Proper mental health care system.
Get people off the street. You need to lower migration in a range of Western countries. I think.
Hold on, one at a time. One at a time, because we'll deal with the mental health.
Let me just 1 second. I just need to make sure that my stream's working. So give me 1 second. Sorry.
Oh my God.
I think
Tali. My God. Tali. Okay, go ahead, Tali. Because otherwise, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I think well, people are just like really triggered by him and what he has to say. But there are people in the chat saying like, oh, okay, so we should just like put homeless people in camps. We should just lock them all up. And yes, literally, if you are out on the streets and you are mentally ill and living in your own filth, yes, you either consent to go to a mental hospital or you go to jail. It can't come at the expense of everyone else living in that society, making it unsafe for them. And it's the lie that it is somehow more dignified as long as you have choice, right? As long it's like this, it's like a fetish for consent. Like, well, if the person doesn't consent, then the most dignified thing that we can do is like let them have their agency, and that it's somehow more dignified to live in filth on the street, screaming at people on the corners, than it is to be institutionalized in a mental hospital. So I think people do need to take this stuff more seriously, and it does feed into low trust that we have in our society. And petty crimes are bad for the economy, they're bad for business. All of these things really do interplay with each other. And I think there are just so many people who just don't take this stuff seriously, and they They do so at their own demise. Like, this is part of for all the people who are so concerned about Trump and the Republicans and what they see as a reactionary backlash. Well, you feed that if you insist that it is somehow more dignified and better for cities like New York to have people, living in their piss on the subway than living in a hospital bed.
I don't disagree
agree.
entirely with the premise that there needs to be a more robust system for mental health and dealing with those who are suffering from mental illness in America. My concern, however, is that we have an administration that is right now looking to classify all trans people as too mentally ill to own a gun. So if we have a system in place, if we craft a system where they can involuntarily commit you for having mental illness, and then they start to classify certain groups as mentally ill, like soldiers with PTSD, right? Or other things. I think that you are correct in that there needs to be a system in place, but I do wonder, how do we prevent the government from overreaching, right? And using this system, whatever system we may put in place, to really just kind of classify their enemies as mentally ill and then dealing with it accordingly.
Yeah, look, obviously I would be against that. I don't want to see that happen. I think America does have a lot of safeguards in place because it is a democracy. Obviously, I'm not talking about political opponents being committed involuntarily. I don't want that to happen at all. I'm talking instead about like people, like for example, the guy who killed Erna, or for example, the
Sure.
guy who lit that woman on fire on the New York City subway.
Yeah, but no one disagrees with you, right? No one disagrees with you
Yeah.
that those people should have been in some sort of care facility. The question is, and
That's
why
what
it's
we're
hard,
talking about.
yeah, but why it's hard to kind of craft these systems is it's in the places where we disagree, right? The places where
I'm sure it is
it's
hard
harder to determine whether or not someone's actually a danger to themselves and others. That
Well,
where do we err?
we have these independent bodies that are accredited, right? And the APA is very, very far from perfect. But yes, I agree that whoever's in power at that moment, whichever administration is in power, should not be able to point at groups of people that they dislike or distrust or something and say these people are inherently more dangerous. But we can look at what, like, so I agree with you, Wick. I don't want trans people to be barred from having guns at all. I think that's ridiculous. Most people would agree that people who are schizophrenic shouldn't have access to guns. Like, we are able to draw a line somewhere. And it's like, yeah, no, trans people are not too mentally ill to own a gun, and being trans, it is recognized as a mental disorder. That's how people get the qualification to get treatment and to transition, right? As they get diagnosed with gender dysphoria. And yes, you're right, Wick. Like, you could have a nefarious actor who could try to make a bunch of these things, exclude people on a bunch of these different bases. But we that's how all of our like, that's how our democracy works, right? We have subcommittees of supposed to be experts and stuff who bring their knowledge to bear. So I like, yes, it will be difficult, and that's not a reason to not act, right? Like, the two choices can't be, we're afraid that we'll lock up everyone, so instead people just live in their filth on the streets.
Yeah, and I would
Go
say
ahead.
like this is essentially the entire project of democratic politics, which is balancing the public good against individual freedoms. And I think it's very legitimate in a democracy to have these debates and to work out the right way to go about it. I'm somebody who does love individual freedom, but I don't think that the individual freedom for crazy people to just like roam the subway committing crimes and doing terrible stuff. I think that should not supplant the public good of safety and a decent level of public order. And so I've become a bit more conservative in recent months, but there are different strands of conservatism, right? And you had for a long time the sort of Reaganite Thatcher type model. And the Thatcher model was essentially she literally said, there is no such thing as society. And that's something I'm really against. I'm not in any way a kind of like extremist libertarian. I'm actually more of a communitarian because I did come from the left, right? And so I think things like I care about public goods. I care about I care about society as a whole. I care about, the good of the community. And that I think is supposed to be the best part of the left.
Should the good of the community, though, outweigh the freedom of the individual to make a choice? Let's talk about not so much mental institutions, but let's talk about something else. Just real quick, please. One of the things that happened recently is we had the firing of Jimmy Kimmel from ABC, from his Tonight Show or live show, or I forget exactly what the name of the show was. I never really watched it. He's a boring guy. Many are saying that Kimmel should not have been allowed to say what he said on live television because
I disagree with that.
Yeah, you disagree with that? You think that he should have been allowed to say it? Go ahead.
Look, I do find what he said offensive. I dislike what he said. And I'm against what he said, but I don't think that the government should be involved in the decision at all. I don't like that the Federal Communications Commission pressured the network, the FCC. I think that's really, really wrong. Funnily enough, Brendan Carr, the FCC guy, like 3 years ago, followed me for like a week and then unfollowed me because I was anti-Trump at the time. But I think it was really bad that the FCC intervened and made that decision. I think the funny thing is you actually look at the ratings of these late night TV shows and they've actually been cratering for a couple of years now. And I mean, I don't really even, I never really watched them. I don't really like them. I think the only one I ever really liked is, who's the British guy again?
John Oliver?
Yeah, I like John Oliver. I always thought that John Oliver was funny. I didn't really like the others. Never really liked Jimmy Kimmel. I think what he said was offensive and stupid, and I found it offensive. But I don't think that
what was the offensive part of it to you?
Well, he said that the shooter was MAGA, which is a lie. He wasn't a MAGA shooter, and I think that
I don't think he said that. He said that
he did say that straight
MAGA.
Up.
Well, the quote.
He said MAGA. He said he was one of. He said MAGA. What was the quote again? It was something like MAGA said it was one of ours, but it was actually one of theirs, or something like that.
No. So Tali, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
He said that MAGA spent the time right after the assassination trying to prove that he wasn't one of theirs. It was something like that, which again, I think there's different ways to parse that statement.
He said MAGA was one of theirs.
He said MAGA was trying to prove that this guy wasn't one of theirs, which leaves open the implication that yes, in fact, this guy was one of theirs, aka MAGA.
I've got the exact quote.
I think it takes a lot of it takes a lot of parsing.
It does. Look, I disagree on this. I don't think it takes a lot of parsing. I think that the people want to read into it something that's not there. He said,
I think it's the complete opposite. I think the people who want to defend him have to read into it further to make it like a more again, and he shouldn't be fired for it. And there are a lot of people who aren't convinced that this guy was left wing at all. Like he might just firmly believe that this guy is probably MAGA or MAGA adjacent or whatever. I think it takes more reading into it to say like, well, no, he's not actually saying it's MAGA. He's just saying that MAGA really desperately doesn't want the guy to be MAGA.
I'll just read it out.
I'll
just read it out. We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. That's a true statement.
My reading of that is that he's essentially saying that it was one of MAGA's. That's how I've read the statement.
I understand. And a lot of people have. But what I read the statement is that MAGA was doing what every single other group at that time was doing. They were desperately trying to point at.
He didn't say that. He could have said that, though, Whick, which is, again...
Okay, you got to use. Hold on. You can't just take those, Tali. You can't just take those 3 words and ignore all the words around it. You have to take the entire quote in context.
I'm accepting all of the words, but you just said like what you just added would be more true. That everyone, in the aftermath. And by the way, this is how like all mass shootings and terrorist attacks
all tragedies
happen,
are now a game.
You have the trans community. whenever this stuff happens, whenever there's a shooting, especially lately, right, with all of the hysteria around trans people, you have trans people coming out saying, I hope this shooter wasn't trans. You have Muslims saying, I hope this shooter wasn't Muslim. So this is like a common enough event, right? People are hoping that it's not part of their group or whatever that was responsible for this, even though the group wouldn't be responsible for an individual's actions. But what you added words that would make it more accurate, more palatable, whatever. Like, yes, everyone right after, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, before anyone looked for the killer, they were focused on trying to prove how the killer wasn't one of theirs. But when he just says that about MAGA, he leaves the inference wide open that this kid was in fact MAGA. And again, that shouldn't get him fired unless ABC decided to fire him for that.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with you that it shouldn't get him fired, but I disagree with you that that's what he meant. Like, I think you have to be primed to believe that's what he meant. I think you have to actually be primed.
I don't think so.
Look, I disagree with you, Whick.
I know you disagree. When I saw it, the first thing I saw it and I thought he's blaming MAGA for the shooting. I think a lot of people, probably millions of people, saw it that way. That I found it offensive. That said, as I said previously, I don't think he should have been fired. The FCC should have had no role in the decision. I don't want a society where the government can decide TV licenses and stuff like that based on what they are programming. I think that's wrong.
So do you think so I've seen you say and you can correct me if I'm misinterpreting because I might be. I see you say that you are going more to the right than you have before lately. Can you describe what you mean by that? When you say you're going more to the right, what do you mean?
Yeah, sure. It's not necessarily that I support Trump. I wouldn't describe myself as MAGA at all. I've been very critical of Trump in the past. So I don't describe myself as a Trump guy. And I don't even think I would necessarily vote for the Republicans, which is of course theoretical because I'm Australian anyway. But just in general, I think I've become more of a philosophical conservative, just in the sense that I have this growing distaste and disgust for just the reality is it is massive sections of the left, which, October 7th, there was immediate celebrations in the streets and there was immediate gloating, like this is what it means to have decolonization. And we've seen that for 2+ years now with people like Hassan Piker, who've just basically been gloating and cheering the whole time about it. And then you have horrific incidents of crime like the Erna thing. And immediately you saw Van Jones on CNN say, oh, well, hurt people. Really, we should consider why this guy was hurting so bad that he just decided to slaughter someone on the train. And I just think that is such I think it's just indicative of this really strange mindset where a terrible crime takes place. And for some reason, liberals and leftists, the immediate sort of mental gymnastics that take place is we should consider the empathetic perspective of the perpetrator. And I just can't understand that. I think it's so wrong. Like when I see the murder of Erna, never in a million years would I think, oh, I wonder whether the guy who killed her was hurting really badly that day. I just don't care whether he was hurting. Again, I think he should have been in a mental institution or something like that. But it's just this really weird, strange mental gymnastics that takes place where the empathy somehow always seems to come on the part of the perpetrator. I was the victim of crime in June where my car got broken into, people stole my wallet. And I posted about this online. I was so upset about it because it wasn't just they took my bank cards and they took $1,000 off my bank cards. It wasn't just the money though. It was the fact that I had in my wallet like notes from a departed family member that I saved with me because it was really important to me sentimentally. So that losing the wallet, the $1,000 didn't even really mean much to me. It was losing that sentimental link that I had to a departed family member.
I understand.
Which kills me, right? And I was so upset. You feel a great sense of violation when your car's been broken into, someone steals your wallet like that, and you lose essentially something that was really important to you. Like part of it is so frustrating, right? Like I wouldn't care. Take the fucking wallet, take the fucking money.
Yeah, it hurts. It's a violation.
Leave the fucking notes, right?
I get it.
So what killed me in the aftermath of that was straight away, and it wasn't just one person, it wasn't just two people, it was literally like hundreds of leftists who they either gloated because they're like, oh, we fucking hate Drew because he's against tank, there were heaps of Hassan Piker fans, for example, who were like, oh, this is awesome, I'm so glad this happened to Drew. And then there were also just a lot of people who were like, oh, well, consider it from the perspective, maybe the guy who did this was really poor and they really needed your wallet.
What is the percentage of leftists, right, whatever you think of as leftists, that you think engage in this behavior? If you have to get it, like, guess. I understand we don't have like a scientific poll.
I don't think it would be helpful for me to guess, but what I would
say because this is important, and the reason I'm asking right? So just real quick,
I would say that from my own personal experience, it is distressingly mainstream, to the point that you literally have Van Jones, who is one of the most famous liberal talking heads in America on CNN, who his first reaction to the Erna killing was to go, well, we need to consider hurt people. It's like, no, not at all. Like, there's no conceivable dimension of the universe
this is
where
where we're going to disagree. This is where we're going to disagree again, because I don't think that it is a significant portion of the left, quote unquote, that engages in this behavior. I think that there are a worryingly, it's larger than I would like, by all means, right? That the left engages in this. But like, I think what you're doing here is people are being mean to you online, and you are using that to drive your view of the world. And I promise you, outside of that,
but it's so easy. It's so okay. Here's the thing, though, right? Like, it's so easy to just go, oh, you know, they're just a bunch of people being mean to you online. But you have to consider my perspective, right, man? I've literally been swatted, like, to the point that I was literally held incommunicado in a prison cell for 24 hours without any access to the lawyers, no access to the Australian High Commissioner, like the embassy in London. I was literally held as a terror suspect for 24 hours because I was swatted by one of these far left people. I've had literally a campaign of death threats against me for 5+ years since I was 19 years old. You know that, and I've experienced that for 5+ years, right? Because of my opinions, because I spoke in the world. And then I see the reality is it was hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people immediately celebrating the murder of somebody who was just a political commentator.
People keep saying millions. It was not millions.
It was millions. It was realistically, it was millions, because you could go onto TikTok, you could go onto Twitter, you could go onto every single major social media platform, and there were just like my feed was covered in these posts, and it was hundreds of thousands of likes, and it wasn't.
This is the problem.
Another thing as well. You can say this as well. You might go, oh well, they're just trying to un-Russian bots. But why is it the case that I logged onto Instagram that day, right? And there were at least like 10, 15 progressive kids that I went to university with that I would have been friends with 4 or 5 years ago, who had as their Instagram stories, oh, this is actually justified. This is actually good. And this is the reality, right? Like, people are responding to the actual reality around them. And it's the fact that there are people that I shared a classroom with, who I called friends, people I've sat down with, had dinner with before, people I've literally hung out with for hours and hours and hours on end, that I've lost contact with them for a couple of years, and then I just suddenly see them cheering on the brutal, cold-blooded murder in broad daylight of a political commentator. And I'm somebody who's had death threats against me for 5 or 6 years. So how is this stuff not supposed to affect you, right? I don't accept this assumption where people go, oh, well, it's just a bunch of people being mean online. Like, it's actually a response to reality, right? And it's like I feel like it's like the 60s all over again, right? There was a conservative backlash to the far left in the 60s, people who would go out and do the Viet Cong chants, and there were literally thousands of bombings by far left groups around America, over there riots, all this stuff, and people hate this stuff. The reality is, normal people hate this stuff. They want to have
normal people
peace and
yeah, you're correct. Normal,
yeah.
And Tali, if you're talking, we can't hear you again. I don't know what the dealio is. Oh no, I don't know what it is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you go.
Okay.
But before you go, I'm gonna give you the mic in a second, right? But I think that, and this happens to a lot of people. It's not just you, Drew. But this is what's kind of driving a wedge between us as people, is we are fed by the algorithms to see the most extreme takes that we possibly can. So the normal takes, they don't get traction. But I would posit to you that 90% of people out there on the left and the right were horrified at Kirk's death. They did not celebrate it.
Two things, right? Like, one, I understand the argument that this is just the algorithm feeding extreme content, but that doesn't explain why there are like literally more than 10 progressive kids that I went to university with, that I was friends with for years, who their instinctual reaction was to celebrate. It doesn't explain that. These are people I know in real life who instinctually celebrated. And secondly, it doesn't explain why, like, AOC literally yesterday was right up there in Congress. She immediately was giving a speech basically denouncing the legacy of Charlie Kirk, basically saying, oh, he's an evil person, all this sort of stuff. And it's like,
hold on, you can say that? That's not celebrating the murder.
Okay, let me respond.
That's not justifying the murder. That's not condoning the murder. And the fact that you're lumping in AOC with the people you were saying are celebrating the murder, that's the problem.
Okay,
that's the problem, right?
I'm not saying that she's necessarily celebrating the murder, but this is the hypocrisy that I want to call out, right?
But you were just talking about the people you saw in your life who celebrated the murder, and you went into AOC as if they were the same.
Okay, but let me explain what I mean by AOC, right? Again, I know that she formally condemned the murder, but this is what I'm trying to point out. So when this happened, right? If you go back 5 years when George Floyd was killed, and again, it was a horrible killing, he should never have died. But when George Floyd was killed, you didn't see AOC immediately get up in Congress and deliver a speech like, guys, we need to consider the fact that he had all these previous convictions and that he had held a gun against a woman's stomach and almost killed somebody in a home invasion. Nobody did that, right? So
because he wasn't a political public figure like Kirk was for years.
But you can say that.
There's a
but
difference.
There was also no, but dude, it's not simply the fact that I've seen people make that take where they said, "Oh, well, it was just actually objecting to his killing. We weren't actually venerating him." But
wait, hold on. Wait, Drew. Drew, we can just we can answer this quickly. Whick, when George Floyd was killed, okay, and you had people immediately coming out and saying, or when anyone gets, when there's a black man killed or there's someone killed, right, in a famous thing, and it's caught on camera. And people immediately go out and look for that person's criminal history, right? And then you have people who immediately come out and say, this guy had all of these different crimes. He was arrested here, here, and there. He was a threat to society. Why are those people saying that?
Depends. A lot of them will say things like, yes, he should have never been in this situation. If the criminal justice system had been doing its job, he would never have died. There are people who are doing it like that. That's fine to do. That's a fine argument to make. There's nothing condemnable about that. But there are other people who are doing it who are saying, and that's why I'm glad he's dead. But here's the thing. Those people will say that 90% of the time. They will say, and that's why he deserved it. AOC did not do this. Many on the left are not doing this. They are saying,
you're
political
right,
violence
because there are many
is
on
never
the
okay.
left who are not that crude. They are not as crude as some of the people on the right who would speak like that. And this is so. Listen, I think there is a lot of things that are getting lumped together, and I don't know if I'm going to put AOC in the same category. And by the way, I think a lot of this speech, there's so much plausible deniability that it's nothing that we can It's not a there. It's not. They're not committing an offense by doing this, but you had people after the embassy workers shooting who came out and said, of course they should not have been shot. But no, they did work for the genocidal Zionist regime. And, they were there getting together, planning on how they could block aid from getting into Gaza. Violence is never the answer. They should not have been shot. We need gun restrictions now, right? You can say all those things. And when the other half of your butt, you are giving a rationalization, even if that's not the purpose. And like you said, there are people with multiple purposes, right? There are some people in the George Floyd case, right, who are just trying to say, look at all the failures of the system leading up to this. There's some people in the Charlie Kirk case who are saying, well, I don't want to whitewash or sanitize this, right? But there are other people who are saying, well, yeah, he was kind of a piece of shit, so whatever, I don't really care. A lot of people I'm not in, yes. And I think too, you can say that it's a tiny portion of people who are celebrating, and we can put Charlie Kirk even to the side, because especially when Charlie Kirk said a lot of inflammatory things that were going to upset a lot of people. That's sort of undeniable. But even when we think back to the Luigi Mangione shooting, there was that I didn't think I could be really shocked anymore, but I was shocked by how many normal people
But when you saw the polling on it, and this is a thing. This is exactly. Thank you for bringing up Luigi Mangione, because when you saw the polling of this, it was very, very small percentage of people who were actually okay with it. Okay, so we're being shown this 5% of the public, and we're assuming it's 50%, and that's the issue I'm having. Anyway,
but again, but first of all, it doesn't need to be critical. Doesn't need to be critical mass for it to be a problem. It doesn't need to be 51% for it to be a problem. And again, to Drew's point, it's not just the crazy people online. It's not just the, borderline personality TikTokers. It is random people that you went to high school with and middle school with and college with, posting these nihilistic, super snide remarks on social media. And again, even if they're not saying, well, I'm glad he's dead or he deserved it, they are leaning into the political messaging of, well, maybe now we'll finally have a conversation about healthcare in America. Like, that is a rationalization of the violent murder against Brian Thompson. And again, I don't think any one of those individuals saying these things are inherently evil. And I don't think that they should be culpable for any crime. They're not responsible for the murder. I don't think that they're trying to encourage it in the future. But we had conversations about like stochastic terrorism and stuff, and the way that people rationalize these horrible events. And again, I get defensive because people make the exact same accusations about me, like, oh yeah, Tali only changed her political views because people online were mean to her. And then I say the same thing is true. Well, no, actually, it wasn't people online, right? It was people in my real life. It was the people around me, my peers, my cohort. And it's not, and not everyone is as crazy as the most extreme fringe far left people, but a lot of more normal people have absorbed a lot of this. And it's easy to say, Whick, hold on. It's easy to say, well, it's easy to say, like, this is not everyone. You're painting with too broad a brush. That's fine. But the problem
it's not
is
just easy.
like
it's correct to say this. It's correct.
Okay, sure.
It's
but
just
the problem,
true.
Sure.
And the problem is, when we point out, like, Elon Musk did this, and it was very inappropriate when he would say things like, "We need to fight back. The left wants to kill you." Right? When they say things like, "When the other side wants you dead, we can't live with these people anymore." They're taking, again, a 1% problem and making it a 20% problem or a 50% problem. And we need to get back to reality, gang. We need to stop letting these rage baits bait us. And that's anyway, Drew, you want to go? But that's what we're going to talk about next.
So
rage baiting. Go ahead.
This is the problem, right? It is 20%. The reality is it is about 20%. So let me explain that figure. There's maybe a
huge
hardcore
number.
Huge
number.
So there's maybe a hardcore, right? There's a hardcore of 4 or 5% who will literally outright go, "I'm glad that he's dead. Look at the blood coming out of his neck. It's awesome." Like, those people who literally posted straight up, like, cartoons, like, of just Charlie Kirk with blood shooting out of his neck. That's 5%, right? But the problem is that there is now, this is where I got so up. This is what drove me away from the left. There is the tankies, the far left, right? It's 5%. But then there are too many people in the center left who've basically been infected by them or make excuses for them. And I'll give you an example, right? Like, somebody like Pisco. Pisco is not a tanky, but he's someone who, like, literally was saying to Destiny, "Oh, bro, like, if the choice is between Hassan Piker or Trump, I'm choosing Hassan Piker." And it's like, no, dude, Hassan Piker literally wants to basically kill Tali because she's Jewish. So I'm never in a million years ever, like, working with
Tali,
with
Hassan Piker. Don't take people answering a hypothetical that's meant to be extreme and insane as a indicative of their actual positions on things. I have problems with Pisco too. Though. I get it. Look, Pisco can be a lot, right? I like him a lot of times. I don't like him a lot of other times, right? We go the rounds.
He's a very annoying guy. Very annoying
guy.
But
at the end of the day, like, this is an extreme hypothetical meant to illustrate, like, a point, but don't take him like it's a hard decision, right?
But people like Pisco.
But and just real quick, this 20% number you said, you just pulled it out your ass, man.
No, because
you just pulled it out your ass.
You're asking me to estimate. This is based on my own personal experience. Maybe the tankies are like 5% of the left, but the problem is that there are too many people on the center left who are basically like, "Oh, listen, the tankies on our side. We're never going to punch left because the real problem is Trump." That's the people like Pisco, right?
Correct.
And I can't stand that because you have to punch left.
Yes.
I agree. Right? I punch left a lot. Right. I agree with you, but I would never say that most of the left is celebrating Charlie Kirk's, because that's just
I'm not saying most,
true.
But it's too high a portion. It's too high a portion. It's people like Pisco.
It is too high a portion, but it is much less of a portion that the people are trying to claim it is. But you are right. Even one is too high.
You know that you are somewhat of an exception. I'm not saying of like the everyday American, the everyday voter or whatever, but of the people who are like plugged in and having this conversation and making the most impact and stuff, you are among the exceptions. And you get a lot of shit for being that, for being too friendly to people on the right, you know, for having too hard of a line against the communists and the socialists and stuff like that. So you get shit for it.
I get shit by internet people who are like 1%.
Sure, Whick. Okay, fine. I'm not saying that shit is supposed to trigger you. That's not what I'm saying. But we have different thresholds of what we find acceptable, and you maybe find some of it more acceptable than people like Drew and I do. One of the problems that I see, and again, I'll just base this on myself, but I think it's true for Drew, because I think I started this ideological evolution a couple years before Drew did. And yes, I also moved to the right. I definitely moved to the right. A lot of my mainstream, positions are not in line with the mainstream Democratic position anymore. But I'm
Do you
simply
regret
not
your
on
vote
the
for
right.
Trump?
No one, hold on. No one on the right recognizes me as part of the right. I'm not like trying to move into the right. There are a lot of things on the right that are, again, way worse than Trump. Like the people on the far right and the dissident right, those people are much more concerning to me. There is major rot on the right, and Drew sees this too because he argues with a lot of these people. But the problem that I think people like me and Drew have, there is no space for people like me and Drew on the left, because the things that we say are just too triggering. They're just unacceptable. They're just bigoted. They're this and that. And so it's like,
Tali, you are my co-host.
This is what we are
I am on the
told.
left. What do you mean that there's no space for you?
There isn't. Even you are like,
because I disagree with you on a few things doesn't mean there's not space for you. This is a problem. I should be free to disagree with either you, Drew, or you, Tali, and not have it push you away because we agree more than we do. We don't.
Wick, you are a moderate.
Go ahead.
You are a
Yeah,
moderate
exactly.
with Trump people in your family and all this stuff around you.
I want to say that, right? Wick, you're a nice guy. You're obviously a moderate.
You don't know me. I could be an asshole, Drew.
Okay, but what I'm saying though, right, is the reality is that both Tali and I are met with essentially full blanket hostility by the left. At this point, that's what both of us are.
Yes.
And I think one of the big things for me was when Zoran Mamdani won, there were a number of centre-left people, even people like Ezra Klein, who I really respect, who were like, oh, you know what? Actually, we have to accept that Zoran is part of our coalition. And it's like, no, it should never be accepted like that. Like, this guy basically spent years and years talking about how he hated America. All these years where he was basically sympathetic to hardcore extremists on the far left and people who literally have called for killing Jews. Like, he literally sits down with Hassan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11. And then Ezra Klein's like, oh, well, Zoran's a little bit more left than I am, but he should be included in the coalition. So that's, for me, the breaking point. If Zoran is included in the coalition, how am I in the coalition? Of course, I'm Australian. I'm just talking.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Like, Australians are Australian, and fair enough. But when it comes to like Mamdani, I feel no need to have an opinion on him because I can't vote on Mamdani. I'm not even in New York City, right? Like, I have no opinion that matters. But here's my point.
We're talking about the culture.
Yeah, my point is I think that it's very okay to have a discussion in our culture about how much we should invite people like Mamdani into the coalition. I'm with you that I don't think we should. I don't think we should. I agree with you, but I don't let it make me more right wing. I don't abandon my party. I don't abandon my position because people disagree with me. I'm here.
First of all, our position.
I think you guys are. You say you are.
Also, our positions have changed. Hold on. And Drew, I wonder if you will come to see this differently too, because I think sometimes you don't help yourself in the way that you describe your journey. Because at least for me, I feel two things. I do feel, again, abandoned by the left or whatever. Like the things that I believe are just outside of the Overton window that the left is willing to accept. A, but that's because B, my views on a lot of things did change. You know, I started reading different things and listening to different things, and it's not good to get stuck into a right wing echo chamber either. And I spend most of my time getting beat up in liberal spaces lately, anyway. But it's not, oh, these people are mean to me, and so I throw my principles away or I throw my party away. It's like, this is, it's saying that the party is not going in a direction that I want it to. And that's, I think, that the problem that like people like Connor and stuff have. It's like, you know, people are like, oh, the real pressure on Connor now has been like, why don't you just officially call yourself a Democrat? You know, like, you voted for Kamala, you vote with us, whatever, you're Jump. Why don't you call yourself a Democrat?
Because he's not.
Like screaming. He's
a Republican, I'm not you. And that's okay to be.
I'm not.
It's okay
like
to be
you.
a Republican,
right.
But he stands on business 10 toes, right? That's what makes counterpoints. So that makes counterpoints a better person, right? Is because he won't be pushed by people on the other side. So, Tali, I'm going to ask you again. Do you regret your vote for Trump?
You're so funny, Wick. Just like taking over people. First of all, you could at least read it that this was a super chat.
We'll get to the super chats. I
don't like with the Trump administration. I'm being as honest as I possibly can, and no one likes my answer, so I really don't give a shit at this point. I am not happy with what the Trump administration has been doing. Nothing. It's completely unprincipled. There's no wins that have come so far for me. Directionally, some of the things are things that I would like to see, but no, I have no love for Trump or the MAGA movement or any of these things. I wouldn't go back and vote for Kamala. People don't like that answer. That's my answer.
What about you, Drew? If you were an American and you could vote in an American election, Who would you have voted for, knowing what you do now, like being right now? Who would you have voted for in 2024? Kamala or Trump?
Look, great question. Because I still think I could. I don't think I could ever say that I could vote for Trump because I still really dislike things like January 6th and stuff like that. I dislike stuff like the FCC censoring Jimmy Kimmel. I dislike his economic policies, a lot of different things. But I do have to say, I agree with the deportations. Not necessarily the way that they're going about it. Like, I think they have been too harsh in how they've treated individual cases and stuff like that. But you have to have a border. You have to have tough on crime policies. And stuff like bringing in the National Guard to LA and bringing in the National Guard to DC, I don't think I'm necessarily against it because I don't like rioting and I don't like crime. And
do you think that the federal government should be able to override a state? Right, like
people said
DC,
that it was going to become a dictatorship. Nothing happened though. Nothing really happened in LA.
We're going to take DC off the table for a minute because there's a real legal question about who has ownership, I guess, for lack of a better term, over DC. But when we talk about Chicago, or we talk about LA, and we talk about these places where the state, right, normally is the one to invite the federal government to take control of the National Guard if they need, right? Like it is from request of the state's government.
Here's a big problem, right? Here's a big problem. Like you had JB Pritzker, and it's funny. JB Pritzker literally retweeted me like 6 months ago. So obviously my political trajectory has been funny, but JB Pritzker was like literally interviewed, and someone was like, the journalist was like, "Oh, there were 20 killings over the weekend," and he just goes, "Yeah, that's life in Chicago." It's like, so these, unfortunately, the problem is that a lot of these Democratic politicians, like, they're just so blasé about it. They just don't care. They're just so nonchalant about this. And then you go, well, the Democratic politicians didn't invite the National Guard into the state. I was like, but at the same time, they just don't even see a problem with 20 people getting killed every weekend in their city, which is fucking mental. So this is my problem, right?
Yeah, but these are two separate issues.
The problem is I don't necessarily like Trump. I don't necessarily like Trump and his methods, but the problem is there is just this massive, massive problem on the left where they literally just don't see any. They have no conception of civilization. They have no conception of a cohesive national culture, and they just don't care about public order at all, and they don't care about crime. It's just this massive. I think this is where I struggle with the left now, where it is actually just a different way of viewing the world. Like, and I remember from when I was a leftist, like. I'll give you an example. When I was a leftist, when I was like 16 or 17 years old, the Cologne sex assault attacks took place in Europe. And I remember when I was like 16 or 17 years old, because I was a leftist, I remember there was a news article like 1,000 women attacked in Cologne on New Year's Eve by Muslim migrants. And I just thought to myself, the instinctual reaction I had was, oh, that must be right-wing propaganda because I was a leftist. And then now I'm like, no, that actually was a genuine problem that took place in real life. And you can't just go, oh, it's right-wing propaganda, because it is happening in real life. The grooming gangs case in Britain is a great example too. When I was a leftist 5-6 years ago, if you asked me about the grooming gangs, I would have just been like, oh, isn't that just right-wing propaganda? But then when I actually sat down and properly studied it and properly read about it, I was like, my God, it actually is this massive systematic problem. And the reality is that too many people on the left had that reaction that I had when I was like 18, where it's just like, oh no, that's just right-wing propaganda. Let's just not even think about it.
So when Trump makes a tweet, saying Chicago will find out why it's called the Department of War, you're saying that is better for the social cohesion. Hold on, let me finish.
I don't think that's good.
That's better for the social cohesion in America than
that's bad.
The left.
That's bad.
But I'm not asking you if it's bad or good. I'm asking you, is it better or worse than
Whick,
the left?
But Whick, this is frustrating because I think what Drew and I are both trying to express is both sides are off the fucking rail.
Okay,
so it's like,
but when we have to choose between both sides, you have to be able to measure which is worse.
Okay, let me respond.
Okay,
let him respond. Let him answer the question.
Like, what's worse? Let's talk about social cohesion in America. Okay, there's two things here, right? And I'm not trying to do whataboutism, but this is something we need to discuss.
Sounds like it.
Of course, again, I'm condemning what Trump said. It's bad. He shouldn't say Department of War. He shouldn't make gloating posts like that. The social media shit is stupid. I agree in general. I agree in broad terms of deportations. When they did stuff like the Studio Ghibli pics and stuff like that, it's stupid. It's performative. It is literally performative.
Hold on. You understand that the grossness that you felt when people were celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. These are what people were celebrating with the deportations, with Alligator Alcatraz buying merch, turning it into a fucking theme park, right? Like, to say that the right is better on this issue than the left.
I'm not saying it's better.
Crazy.
I'm not saying it's better. I think the problem is that in general, there's basically like a level of deportations that Democrats just will never accept. Like, you literally get this argument where people will literally just say, well, even illegal immigrants are part of the country, and so they have literally no conception of.
Obama was known as the deporter in chief. Okay,
I know.
What do you mean the left would never expect?
I agree with that. A lot of leftists hate that. A lot of leftists hate that. A lot of leftists hate Obama.
Sure, but Obama's on the left.
Not.
Yeah, but those
in some ways, yes. In some ways, no.
Those weren't the same types of things, and Obama was doing the much easier job that the Biden administration in some ways neglected to do, which was the deportations that Obama was doing was immediately sending people back over the border. What Trump is
and Democrats
to do is much more
by
difficult.
and large,
and I'm not motivated
with
by that.
I want to say this, right? Here was one. I'll try to explain one area where I did break a lot with the left, and it comes with national identity. So I remember when Mehdi Hassan did that Jubilee.
And no, just to acknowledge, Obama is like, at least among the Democrats, one of the most beloved figures on our side. Obama is the guy, right? So when we talk about like what the left and what the right aren't okay with, like
Obama
the left
was not doing the significantly more difficult job of deporting people who are living within the country.
But we're talking about being okay with deportations and what level they are. We absolutely have to acknowledge that Democrats historically have been okay with deporting people. Now you could say that they should do it more, and fair enough, we can have that discussion. But this is what, and let me finish and I'll let you go, Drew. Right? This is the problem I'm having with both of your characterizations of these things. You give infinite charity to the right, and it seems like you give no charity to the left.
We're criticizing the sides that we come from.
But it's not both sides
that we come from.
It's not both sides.
The sides that we are criticizing the sides that we come from, that we are more familiar with, that we have more critique of, because again, that is where we come from. That's where more of our values lie. That's why we're spending more time criticizing the left, and because the left seems to have really turned on hating our civilization. And no, it's not everyone, Wick.
It's almost no one. It's Hassan and maybe a few others.
It's not almost no one. You're complete. First of all, if it's Hassan and a few others, Hassan is the most popular political political streamer.
He gets like 50,000 people
if it's a
stream.
Others, if it's that live, yes, watching.
Dude, he's mainstreamed by New York Times. He's mainstreamed by the New York Times. All mainstream liberal media basically hold him up as the voice of the online left. And listen,
the frustration by people like Drew and me are how people on the left don't seem to care and take this stuff seriously. And
just don't take
it's going to continue to push people away.
I want to explain. Here's one way that I did break a lot with the left, and it was on the conception of national identity. So I saw Mehdi Hassan do that Jubilee thing, and obviously he was going up against like actual psychotic fascists. I debated one of the guys. I think I debated the pink shirt guy from that debate, and he was like a full Groyper Nazi. So I hate those guys, okay? But here's where I have a disagreement. Mehdi Hassan was sitting down with this guy, and he was saying, I'm just as American as you. The guy had a family that stretched back to the Mayflower, literally 400 years in the country. And Mehdi Hassan was saying, I'm just as American as you. And I just disagree with that because he got citizenship like 3 years ago.
Which is more American to you, okay? Which is more American? The guy who got citizenship 3 years ago, who supports the Constitution, who supports the First Amendment, or the guy whose family, just let me finish my question, the guy whose family has been here since the Mayflower, but he's a socialist Hassan watcher that wants to destroy America. Which would you consider more American in this?
No. In that case, I would say that the guy who got the citizenship and became a patriot.
And do you know why? Let me finish, and then you can go. Okay. Let me finish. And do you know why? Because we are not a blood and soil nation. Okay, this heritage American shit is bullshit. We are an American. We are a ideal. We are, as Reagan said, a city on the hill, a shining city on the hill.
I like that, but let me get to what I was saying.
A propositional nation.
Okay,
Drew comes from a family of migrants. Drew agrees with you, but he is saying that there is more.
He was just saying he wasn't agreeing. Tali,
can I explain my point?
Explain your point. Let him explain his point, Tali.
Of these two things.
I need to explain my point.
Let Drew explain his point.
Okay. I agree. Theoretically, that's cool that you got a cigar. That's cool. Okay, theoretically, a guy migrates to the country 10 years ago, becomes a citizen, is a full patriot, loves the country, loves Western civilization. Compared to, say, a Hassan, white kid communist who loves Hassan and hates America, but goes back generations. I would agree. The migrant is more patriotic, right? But this is what I want to get to, right? Would you say that Ilhan Omar is a patriot? Would you say that Mehdi Hassan is a patriot? Would you say Hassan Piker is a patriot? What I've got a problem with, even Zoran Mamdani, right? I've got a problem with migrants going to America and going to Western countries more generally. And then they start talking about, oh, America is this disgusting country. The West is so disgusting. The civilization has fallen. I hate that, because you should be grateful. You should be humble. You should actually understand that the country existed before your family went to it. My family went to
stand with
in the 1950s.
Look, Mehdi Hassan, I have disagreed with him, especially on the Israel-Palestine question, quite strongly. But I would consider Mehdi Hassan 1,000 times more American than that fucker, right?
Because he hates Trump.
Erudite, would you come back on the show at some point to talk with Erudite with me? Is that something you do, Drew?
Yeah, sure.
She's asking me. Okay, she's on a plane right now, so she can't jump on, or she would, right? But
like, here's the thing,
we'll have that. Okay.
I can't conceive in 100 million years a reality where I can see Mehdi Hassan as an American, because I'll explain to you right.
And also,
why.
Did you say Ilhan Omar?
She's not American. She hates America.
Hold on, she's definitionally American.
I understand she's a citizen. I know she's a legal American, but I think she hates America, and therefore she's
what
American.
Has she said or done that makes you think a sitting congresswoman hates America?
It's so obvious, dude. It's so obvious. Just
then you should be able to explain easy.
She said that white people are the greatest risk to America. She literally comes to America as a migrant to a country that was mainly built up by European Americans, and then she says, "Oh, white men are actually the greatest danger to the country." She obviously has a lot of racial resentment against white Americans. It's pretty obvious. She hates white people. I
wouldn't say she hates white people. I think I disagree with her on this take. But to say that she hates white people is a gross misread, I think, of this statement.
Let me explain to you what really triggers me. I saw Mehdi Hassan and Ilhan Omar, and they're doing this kind of interview, and they're talking about like how, oh yeah, we formally disagree with the murder of Charlie Kirk, but here's all the way that he's disgusting, and it's like, okay, let me.
Yes, you can do that because he was disgusting in a lot of ways. That's not condoning anything.
Let me explain what's wrong. Mehdi Hassan went to America, and like literally less than 10 years ago, became a citizen 3 years ago. Ilhan Omar, her father was literally a war criminal from Somalia as part of the communist regime in Somalia that literally carried out a genocide. He was literally a colonel in a genocidal military, and in a communist genocidal military, comes to America. They both should be a little bit more humble. Instead, they go, oh yeah, this guy whose family goes back 400 years in America, here's all the ways in which his actually death is essentially almost morally.
I don't give a shit about his fathers. What has he done? This is a problem I have with this way of thinking. You do not get by osmosis to absorb what you have done. This is look. It's the same people who sit and tell me like, well, my daddy was a veteran. I don't give a shit until you strap up and sign up. You don't get any respect for what your daddy did. Frankly,
let me give you a hypothetical. Okay, say tomorrow I jump the border on the southern border in America, and I'm literally living in America illegally. Say that happens tomorrow. Then suddenly I go onto your podcast and I say, oh, half the Democratic Party should all be killed. You would say, you're not an American, fuck off. Okay, you would say that. So why is it that Ilhan Omar gets to come to America as a migrant? Probably literally lied on the citizenship series. Because seriously, they come from a communist background, a communist genocidal military, comes to America, and then she gets to go, oh, here are all these people who should basically be killed. I don't care if they've been...
Hold on. When did she say a group of people in America should be killed? Can you give me that clip or that quote?
Because Charlie Kirk was essentially the largest right-wing media commentator in America, essentially basically represented the views of 78 million people. And she's saying he's evil, fascist. I don't think he should die, but here's all the reasons why it's basically good that he died. And she literally came to
She's
America
not saying it's good that he died.
It's pretty obvious, dude.
It's not obvious. You're reading it and you're playing this game. You're playing this game where you're saying, hold on, because even if someone was fascist, if I thought that you were a fascist, I don't think that gives me the right to kill you. There are many options to deal with fascism other than killing them, right? We have for years in this country. We've had actually years in this country where Nazis, right, have gone in. Are you familiar with the Skokie trials in the 70s? Basically, the ACLU argued for the rights of neo-Nazis in America.
Yeah, I think that's stupid. I think the ACLU is retarded for that.
Hold on.
I don't know.
The head of the ACLU at the time was a Holocaust survivor. Okay, he was a Jew.
I think that's retarded.
Okay, but what he said, and you can disagree or think it's retarded. He says, yes, having freedom of speech and allowing these people to protest, that's a risk. But what's a certainty of eroding our freedoms and having a second Holocaust is if we take their freedoms from them, because that's how freedom works. They will always take it for the people who are considered bad first. That's the thin end of the wedge. And we see this again and again and again.
No, I don't think that if you criminalize neo-Nazis marching through Jewish neighborhoods, which is what the ACLU was protecting the right of Nazis to literally march down Jewish neighborhoods.
Yes,
I don't think
good.
This is where
that's not good.
On this
I'll explain to you why.
Hold on.
I don't think.
Hold on. Remember, they're calling
Go ahead.
Republicans Nazis now. So if they criminalized neo-Nazis watching through neighborhoods, they would, in effect, be criminalizing anyone that people would consider a Nazi. And this is why we keep this shield strong, so we can't play this game.
No. I think that's hysterical.
It's not hysterical. This is the point.
Okay, let me explain to you. I don't see in any scenario where banning Nazis from marching down Jewish neighborhoods would lead to, like, literally another Holocaust. That's this massive slippery slope fallacy. And I want to say about Mehdi Hassan, right? About Ilhan Omar, like, by basically
I want to talk
saying,
about
okay,
the.
Yeah, and to be clear, you still haven't given me a quote from
Hold on.
Ilhan Omar saying she wanted to kill half the country or anything like that.
No, but I'm trying to explain,
Okay,
right?
so hold on.
She formally says Charlie Kirk should not have been killed, and then she goes on a 30-minute rant with Mehdi Hassan, both of them migrants, basically saying, here are all the ways in which it's evil. Here's why it's good.
They're not migrants; they're American citizens. Okay, and they're allowed to criticize Charlie Kirk. That's not illegal yet.
They are migrants. The reality is that they are migrants. I know that they are legally
agree with you about intent, Drew. I agree with you about intent, but it is the weakest hill to die on, because I'm very much with Whick with regards to freedom of speech and expression. The problem, particularly, and again, my as a defender of the Jews, Drew, which I know that you are, and as a Zionist yourself, it's just so easy to make that the example there, right? Like, I need Nazis to be able to talk about their Nazi ideology and to march in favor of their Nazism, because I know that there are people out there who believe that Zionism is Nazism, right? And so it's my belief system and my ideology and the protection of my people that could so easily be classified in that same way. That's number one. Number two, with regards to anti-Semitism in particular, anti-Semitism is a conspiracy theory, right? It erodes at the brains of people who are vulnerable to different conspiracy theories. And once we see this all the time, right? Name the group that you're not allowed to criticize. That's who owns you. That's who's in control, right? Any single thing. I get frustrated. Every single thing the Trump administration has done to outlaw anti-Israel speech, to against hate speech, against anti-Semitism, all of that stuff hurts Jews, in my humble opinion. It is a terrible idea, because it reinforces this idea that there are some protected classes in society, and that breeds resentment. The same way that the LGBTQ POC being overinflated as a protected class by the left for 15, 20 years bred a lot of resentment on the right. So I think that that is the most important limiting principle, basically, is I think you breed conspiracy when you tell people that they're not allowed to look somewhere or they're not allowed to do something. So I think that actually is something that's super important. And I agree with you about the intentions of a lot of these people, and the general idea of, like, importing people who hate your country. That's not the majority of people who are coming to America.
There's nothing more American. There's nothing more American than to come to America and criticize America. That is something that we have a rich history in this country.
There's a big difference between criticizing and hatred. Okay.
I don't think Mehdi Hassan or Ilhan Omar hate this country.
No, it's pretty okay. Let me explain.
You keep saying it's obvious, but I want evidence.
Okay, let me give you an example of Mehdi Hassan. Mehdi Hassan in 2009 gave a speech in London where he called non-Muslims cattle. He called non-Muslims, like, infidel, kafir, cattle. And then in 2015, literally 6 years later, he's migrating to America to work for Al Jazeera, which is, like, Qatari-owned propaganda station. And then a couple of years later, he gets citizenship. And he basically tried to hide for many years. He only apologized for calling non-Muslims cattle in, like, 2019 or 2020. So, like, this guy has really deep down psychotic, basically disgusting views about non-Muslims. If he was a white person, he'd be considered a white supremacist, essentially. It's because he's brown that he's basically accepted by the left. And
I think his views have probably changed. I think his views probably have changed a lot. They haven't changed. I don't think they've changed in a very good direction. Like, I think he's probably not an Islamist in the same way. I don't think that he's an Islamic supremacist, but he is a Western hating leftist in that same way. And I think, again, I think that is a destructive ideology. And that's the problem that I see, is that so many liberals don't see it as a destructive ideology. They see it as, like, they kind of buy into, like, well, this is just the truth, and sometimes, history is ugly, and we just need to be honest about that. And they don't see it as, like, the self-flagellation and the suicidal
Whick, I want to ask you a question, right? So when Ilhan Omar made that infamous tweet, Israel has hypnotized the world, may Allah awaken the people. Is that normal American rhetoric? Is that something that just your average?
Unfortunately, if you go on Twitter, it might be, right? But I condemn it. I don't think what she said was okay or all right, but that doesn't make her un-American.
To say, may Allah awaken the people.
Yeah, that is not an un-American thing to say.
Okay, go to Joe Smith in like Missouri. Just a random household in Missouri.
We can say we're conflating things, and Whick is taking this more literally. Drew means it. Okay, I think the problem, Drew,
I'm saying it's culturally not American at all.
Hold on, I know exactly. You mean it.
Hold on, there's nothing.
You mean it in the way of like you don't want some of these people to literally be classified as Americans anymore. You would like some of these people to be denaturalized, and I don't agree with you there.
I'm not saying that.
You are saying
culturally.
You are saying fine. But you are saying that this is it's an un-American sentiment.
Hold on,
not that
just real quick. Hold on, no, don't let him get away with that. Drew, you said earlier on this broadcast that you thought she lied on her immigration paperwork.
I think she possibly did, considering her family literally were.
When you say things like that, and when you say things like she hates America, she's not culturally American, blah, like all these things, what you were implying is that she shouldn't be here and shouldn't be American. Or considered American.
She's already in the country, so she's already got citizenship.
But you all also talked about deporting, and you want to deport a bunch of people.
Oh, look. If you could have a reality where Ilhan Omar never moved to America, that'd be good for America. But now she's American. What has she added to America? Why
she's a congresswoman. She's a sitting congresswoman. She adds to America by showing people. Hold on, by showing people that America is strong enough to take all kinds. It takes all kinds. That's one of the strengths of the American system. Multiculturalism reigns supreme. Okay.
I have absolutely no defense of Ilhan Omar except for the fact that she's a naturalized citizen, and that's what.
Yeah, and she's exactly. That's my take too. She's a naturalized citizen. That can't be taken away, but because once you got citizenship, you got citizenship. But I'm just saying, if there was a theoretical, if you could somehow go back in time and stop her genocidal war criminal father from Somalia going to America, I think that'd be a good thing. And you say, oh well, she's a congresswoman, so she's automatically contributing to America. Does Marjorie Taylor Greene contribute to America? Not at all. Would you say that she's contributing to the country?
Hold on.
Not at all. So I don't think
the people of their districts vote for them.
She's un-American, by the way. What I meant to say this before, and I think I got cut off or whatever. I know we've been having a lively conversation here.
Okay, first of all, I hate you both for making me defend Ilhan Omar. I don't agree with a lot what she says, but to call her un-American is just not true.
Okay, I don't understand why that's upsetting you so much.
She calls Somalia her home.
Hold on, it's upsetting me so much because Drew comes in here with his example of Mehdi Hassan with that Groyper guy he was debating, and then agrees with the Groyper guy about heritage Americanism.
No.
Heritage Americanism is a problem.
All I'm saying, I'm not agreeing with the Groyper guy.
So you don't agree with Heritage America? You are rescinding your comment about how his family being here from the Mayflower makes him more American than Mehdi Hassan? You're rescinding that?
Not in a legal sense, but I think culturally and morally, migrants should be more respectful to people with longer history in the country. And that includes African Americans as well. I made this point too. Mehdi Hassan is not as American as an African American with 400 years history in the country with slavery in their blood as well. Of course not. Because who's more American? African Americans literally went through 400 years of a lot of brutality and stuff like that. They've been part of America from the very start. So it's not even necessarily a race thing. It's just more about just acknowledging reality that there are some people who've been part of the country for hundreds of years.
Right.
The person who is more American is the one who accepts the propositional values that have founded America.
No, that's silly.
The amount of time that they have been American has no bearing on that.
Drew.
I want to respond to this.
I share some of your concerns. I don't think I'm as concerned as you are. A lot of what you're talking about, these arguments make more sense in Europe, okay? Make more sense where there is literally a lineage of people whose culture was born. who literally come from a people group, right, an ethnic group whose culture was born there, right, who are facing different waves of migration from what the United States have. We have completely different immigration systems, and America is different from these countries. America is about an ideal. America is about people literally traveling from across the world to come here and to settle into this land and to join the path.
And if you agree with all that, hold on, Tali, or not, I'm sorry, Drew, if you agree with all that, then you agree with me that a man could be an American citizen for 1 second. And if they adopt the cultural propositional values that America represents, they are 1,000 times more American than a groiper who rejects those who've been in this America for 100 years.
Who are explicitly against that. Don't bring in people who will go through the naturalization process but are explicitly against what America stands for. And I don't think that America has a huge problem with that, and that's something that's that is easy to shore up. So
can I explain my position a little bit further?
Explain.
I'm not a full heritage American guy. I think to an extent that is silly, because I agree it's more of a European thing, because I don't think America is ever like an ethno state in that sense, not at all. I think the difference is, though, like, if you migrate to a country, even if you get citizenship, I still think you should be a bit more respectful to the people who built up the country before you came. I think that's just a basic fact of life. My family migrated to Australia in the 1950s, and I don't go around saying to people, like, who have history going back to the First Fleet that I'm more Australian than you. I don't think that's a right thing to do. I don't think it's right.
It is if you actually are. I can't speak to Australian stuff. I can't. So fair enough. I don't know anything about Australia, but I can speak to American stuff. I can't speak to American stuff. And what I'm telling you is that it's okay and even good for a person who's been a citizen for a day to look down and call these heritage Americans who have been here for 400 years cucks and losers and F slurs if they are rejecting American values. You should talk down to those people. Those people should be spit upon.
No, dude, you need to be more humble and you need to be more respectful to the people who built up the country before you.
Have some pride in your Americanness, okay? Have some pride.
Drew,
no, but let me explain.
Hold on, Drew.
Okay, Drew. Can I say one thing, right?
Wait.
Go ahead.
In the United States, the real people that you're talking about, Drew, these people are honestly overrepresented on college campuses because they are here on student visas. And yes, they are literally counter Western culture, and they are coming here explicitly and yes, disrespectful to the culture, to the people that they are that they are visitors for. I agree. I think that what you said, that when you are an immigrant to a country, that you should have respect for the people who are already there and for their values and their traditions and all of that. That is a completely there should be. That should cause no outrage in anyone. That is a completely reasonable, sensible take to have. Many immigrants, I would venture to say most American immigrants share that sentiment. You know, they came here for a reason because they aspire to this culture and they have a lot of respect for it. So I think that's a completely reasonable thing to say. But I say to you again, where I think there are people in Europe who are making more sensible claims along the lines of what you're saying, a la like Konstantin Kisin. Okay, he's someone that I respect a tremendous amount. I think he's a philosophical North Star for people who share the politics of you and I. But you should be careful about some of the people who are talking like this in America, people who are talking about heritage Americans, because they are drawing arbitrary lines. They draw arbitrary lines that put the circle like right around when their family got here, basically, and they are making exceptions on different racial lines with plausible deniability. There are people with nefarious intentions who are making these arguments in America.
I get you, and I'll give you a good example. I actually mocked one of the heritage American guys because they posted that thing where it was like, rate your stock, and it was like, if you went back to the 1600s,
I remember that.
And I pointed out Baron Trump under that thing would not be considered a heritage American. Baron Trump's like a full white American. His dad's literally the president of the United States of America. His mum migrated in like the 90s, and his dad, they came after the Civil War. So according to that schema, Baron Trump wouldn't be considered a heritage American, which I think is stupid because he is obviously American. His dad's literally the president of the United States of America. So I'm not a full heritage American type. All I'm saying is people should be a bit more grateful. I don't think it's good for a society for someone to get citizenship and then literally the next day go, oh, half of you people are all evil and you're disgusting and all this stuff. It's just not right. It's not right. And people who have generations going back to the start of the country, they're going to look not kindly upon migration if they see migrants behaving like that. I think migrants need to present more gratefully, more patriotic, more conservative, because I think when there is there are people like Mehdi Hassan who literally came 3 years ago, and he's literally saying he's more American than like 60% of the country. What is that going to do? It's just going to turn people against migration.
I do think that Mehdi Hassan is more American than most MAGA people because he respects the Constitution more than most MAGA people. I don't know if that's the case, and I wouldn't make a blanket statement.
Mehdi Hassan is literally a supporter of political Islamism. He literally supports like the Houthis.
Hassan is less American than most immigrants. Yes, that's true, right? I'm not here to defend Hassan. Hassan doesn't respect the Constitution at all. He's very un-American. Like, if you're here for me to, if we want to have a look, Drew, if we want to bond, if we want to become a friends by shitting on Hassan, we will be best friends. We can shit on Hassan.
He's a very effective left-wing rhetorician.
But he has no power in the Democratic Party. The DNC kicked him out, right? To say he's like
they didn't kick him out. Even that, you guys are actually giving him the victim narrative that he wants. He was not kicked out of the DNC. He was given like a fancy seat, and then he was asked to move over.
Okay, Mehdi Hassan, not Hassan Piker. Sorry,
Mehdi Hassan is also an Islamist.
Yeah, fair enough. I disagree with his takes on Islam. I disagree with his takes on Israel and Palestine, but I have seen his takes on freedom of speech. I have seen his takes on what's going on in this country regarding a lot of the immigration things, and I have seen those takes, and he does, at least from what I can tell, espouse very American constitutional values, and I would consider him more American than a Groyper.
Let me explain the problem with you. Not with you, but let me explain the problem.
You can say it's with me. That's fine. You'd be wrong, but go ahead.
No, I didn't even mean that. I just meant the problem in general with this argument. When you have a migrant who comes to America, they get citizenship, and then the next day they're basically saying that MAGA is the most evil organization, it's fascist to the core, and like Trump should be in prison and all this stuff. Like, do you understand that half the country is going to look at Mehdi Hassan and say, you came to the country yesterday and you're trying to dispossess us of our own democratic rights?
Okay, they can think that, but they would be wrong. I do not bow to incorrect perceptions, no matter how many people seem to espouse them.
You can't come to a country and then tell half the country that they're evil.
You can in America. That's called freedom of speech, baby.
I know
you can in America. God bless us, everyone.
Dude, morally, you shouldn't.
Dude,
I agree.
We all know that the First Amendment agrees. We're all. I know, of course. I'm not saying it should be banned. I'm not saying it should be censored. I'm saying, of course, it's free speech. I'm saying culturally and morally, we're discussing the culture.
Saying it's bad for social cohesion. Yeah, it's bad for social cohesion. And to have
the problem is what's happening and how that works in practice. You may say that, oh, well, we only want to keep it targeted. It never does. What they're doing is they're targeting people, immigrants who have criticized Israel in the most basic of ways and are throwing them in prison for weeks, detaining them.
Yeah,
right?
Can I give you a good? Can I ask you?
Okay, so let me finish, and then you can. Let me finish, and hold on. Let me finish, and then both of you can. Right? So we have a situation where they are claiming that these people are being critical of America, and all they're doing is being critical of the Trump administration, and that's good. They should. And they are conflating criticism with the Trump administration as criticism with America, or criticizing Republicans as criticizing America, or criticizing the right in general as criticizing America. It is not. And I will stand 10 toes down on this, that I am okay with an immigrant coming to this country and having opinions, right? Even if they're not a citizen, and having opinions on the political makeup of this country. That's okay to do. They shouldn't be.
Dude, of course they can have opinions. Of course they can have opinions. Of course they can participate in politics. All I'm saying is just be respectful to people who built the country before you arrived. And I think that's just the most basic moral standard. And I want to ask you this, right?
Go ahead.
Mahmoud Khalil, the green card holder, who said that he was part of a protest that said literally dismantle and destroy the Western Empire, blah, blah. Destroy the American Empire. Do you think Mahmoud Khalil is more American than, like, I don't know?
Well, he's not a citizen, so no.
But why is it that it's obviously?
Well, he's not a citizen, so he's not American default, right?
Okay, but this is the thing, right? I get that obviously we have to have citizenship as a legal distinction to determine who is American on everything. But like, why is it that somebody is not American, but then 1 second later they are American because of the paperwork? Like, we also have to
because they hold on. Do you know what the oath of citizenship says? Right? Are you familiar with that? It's not like, yes, after they take the oath, after they swear allegiance to the country and the Constitution, they become citizens.
There's a super chat that I want to respond to. Someone says, "Wait, can you ask Drew if Mehdi Hassan is an American, are Mexican Americans? If somebody's Hispanic American going back like 200, 300 years, then of course they're American. I see it as a generational thing. It's not race for me. It's actually generational. If your family's been in the country for multiple generations, I think you are American. I think what I'm trying to draw a distinction with is somebody like Ilhan Omar or Hassan Piker or Mehdi Hassan, who are very new migrants to the country, and then they're literally just basically saying that half the country is evil beyond redemption. I think that's so ungrateful. I think that's so morally wrong.
How many immigrants are saying this? How many
Yeah,
newborn citizens? How many citizens that have been in this country for a year are saying this? Almost none.
Almost none. So I agree. Most migrants are fine. I'm talking about the left-wing radical migrants.
The left wing. See, this is a problem, right? The left wing radical migrants, which are maybe like
they exist,
two, okay? And you're trying to bring this as a huge problem. It's not. It doesn't matter. And look, they can be left wing radicals and still be American citizens.
Sorry, say that again.
They can be left-wing radicals that hate America and still be citizens.
I know that they can still be citizens. I'm saying it's morally wrong that they're citizens while they hate the country if they just came to the country.
There's nothing more American than hating America, okay? And we have a long and storied history of this.
That's suicide. That's mentally suicidal.
It is what has made our country the strongest in the fucking world. We're stronger than Australia. We're stronger than Europe. We're stronger than Russia. We're stronger than China.
Okay, but the people who hated America didn't build that up, did they? Like the people who, for example, put Americans on the moon, did they hate the country?
Some of them did. Some of them absolutely did. You could look. I don't think the slaves were very happy with the American system.
Point me to the top NASA scientists. Point me to the top NASA scientists who hated America.
They were from Nazi Germany. We imported them, brother. They probably didn't have very fond feelings of us.
Maybe some.
Okay,
I mean,
like you understand that? Like a lot of the top NASA scientists were literally Nazis that we stole from Germany. They probably didn't have very high fond feelings. I can't read their minds.
It's not Operation Paperclip that put Americans on the moon. It was the ingenuity of the American people.
Drew, view this as from the nice conservative principle of Chesterton's fence, right? There's probably a reason that fence is there. That I don't mean the fence in terms of like borders, but in terms of this defense of speech, right? And like what Whick is saying, and Whick is placing the emphasis on hating America, and I understand why you.
No, I agree. I agree legally for the freedom of speech. What I'm talking about is the moral principle of somebody coming to the country and then hating the country. That's what I'm against. I'm not saying that Americans should be censored and banned from criticizing American.
I'm not saying you're saying that. No one is saying you're saying that.
I'm just saying I can't conceive of a reality where somebody who moves to America while hating the country contributes to the country.
I think that the people who hate America, there are things that you perhaps should hate about America if what America is doing is incorrect or wrong. I think that being critical of America, right, and what America is doing in specific instances can help America, and we should be critical. I'll give you an example of what we're doing right now in America. One of the things that we're doing right now in Trump's America is we are putting these kinds of like we have ICE agents acting as a police force, and they aren't required to show their badges or their faces. They are acting like a Gestapo, basically dragging people from the streets without having to tell people that they're ICE or anything like that. That is something you should hate about America right now, and something you should absolutely try to change. And I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that's immoral to do. Simply just the fact of hate in and of itself isn't enough to let me know whether something's immoral or wrong. But 1 second, I do want to get through these super chats. You did mention them. I do got to make a little money. Let's read a little super chats. And then do you mind if we bring on some callers?
Sure.
Okay, great. We'll do that.
I've got about half an hour more.
Half an hour more? Okay. Great. We'll do that. Let me blast through these super chats. And then, gang, if you want to talk to this guy, jump backstage. Figure it out, gang.
They are going to come in hot.
Okay. Alexander Rin for $10. Oh, we already read those. Hold on. Let me get to the little new ones. Okay, $5. Alexander Rin. To the left, the MAGA is most of the Republican Party. I'm also not certain that I would trust his parents given their politics, to be honest. $5 more from Caleb. How do we deal with an info environment where we are constantly reminded of the worst of society and where disinfo handedly wins against the truth? Oh, $2 from Diak. The right give bigger super chats? Well, I don't know. If you're right wing, prove him right. Give some big ass super chats and we'll say MAGA or something. I'll take your money. $5 from Aeon. If English is your first language, it should be easy to understand. Kimmel did not say the shooter is MAGA. By €6 from Dave Timmerman. This guy is trauma trumping. My feelsies were hurt, so Democrats bad. $5 from Audacity. Will Nance thank Charlie for expiring like she did for George? $20 from Dalsvidanya. This is so stupid. Floyd's past wasn't relevant to his killing. Congress wasn't trying to create a day of remembrance for Floyd. Congress is trying to create a day of remembrance.
There were people deifying him. There were murals of George Floyd everywhere.
Yeah, and it was before they were doing this day of remembrance. It's just so like.
Look, it's all cringe, honestly. The murals were cringe, and the day of remembrance for Kirk is cringe.
By the way, can I say one thing? By the way,
please.
Why is a mural cringe?
I don't know. It's just weird to worship people like that. I don't know. It's personal thing.
They put George Floyd murals on the U.S. Embassy in Kabul.
Everywhere.
It's just too much deification. I want to quickly just respond to the. We'll go back to Super Chat, but I do want to quickly just respond. I want to draw a distinction between criticizing and hating the country, right? I like criticism. Of course, there's a place for loyal criticism, loyal opposition. But I don't see Ilhan Omar as loyal opposition to the country. I think Ilhan Omar literally calls Somalia her real home. She has a lot of racial hatred, I think, towards white Americans. I think she has racial resentment towards these people. She literally said that white men are the greatest threat to the country. These types of comments.
So you have one quote.
Extremely. I will be able to point to more in the future. Obviously, when
you come back with Erudite. When you come back with Erudite, have them ready. Okay, we'll schedule a date and stuff like that. But yeah.
But I hope I've clarified though, right? Again, I don't think she should be deported. She's an American citizen. I don't think American citizens should be denaturalized. I'm against that. All I'm saying is morally and culturally, how can it be that a migrant comes to the country with a lot of hatred for like the West, American Empire, all this stuff, wanting to dismantle the American Empire and all this stuff, and like they clearly don't like America. Like I don't think that's right to say that they are just as American as like Johnny Appleseed.
Okay, this country has become the strongest country in the world with that.
But not from Ilhan Omar. Doing that. Ilhan Omar doesn't make America the most strongest.
We didn't always have the same immigration laws and stuff like this. But so, Whick, I agree with you completely in principle. But also,
America was the strongest country in the world in 1950 without Ilhan Omar.
Whick, you are not a moral relativist, right? You are not a cultural relativist.
True.
America
is the greatest culture, and that's why I think our culture with regards to immigration is the greatest in the world. And one of our cultures with regard to immigration is allowing people like Ilhan Omar, who hate this country, quote unquote, into the country.
Like, pick a date. Like, it has changed over the history of our country.
Yeah.
Yes,
ask your question, but then we got to get back to Super Chats because I got to make money, boys.
One last question. If you could go back to like say 1980, the year 1980, would you still say that America was the best country in the world in the year 1980?
Hell yeah, we were beating USSR.
Okay. I agree with you. So it was the best country in the world before Ilhan Omar arrived. Correct.
Sure, but we allowed Muslims immigrants during that time too. I mean, shit.
I know, and I've got no problem with Muslim immigrants per se. I've got a problem with Islamic extremists, and I think Ilhan Omar, in her heart of hearts, is an Islamic extremist.
I disagree, but let's keep going. Kick Nose Daza for $5 to say no mainstream.
She comes from a country with like a 92% anti-Semitism self-reported rate,
where female genital mutilation is completely ubiquitous as well. Like,
do you think that she's okay with female genital mutilation? Do you think Ilhan Omar is okay with that?
Just speak out against it further.
Okay. $5 from Kick Nostanza to say no mainstream public figures on the left made fun of Charlie Kirk's death, while the right makes fun of Floyd, Pelosi, Hortman, Adam.
Apparently when someone asked her about female genital mutilation, she responded by going, "That's a disgusting question." So beautiful. There you go.
It depends on the context. It might have been. I don't know. Miles comes.
The questioner wanted her to condemn it, and she wouldn't straight up condemn it. She just said,
"It's a weird
you're only
thing."
Asking because I'm a Muslim.
Like it's like asking Tali. Every time you came to this show, I asked you to condemn what Israel's doing. Do you condemn Israel today, Tali? Like, do you? No, you would at a certain point that does become a disgusting question.
But she never talks about it. She never talks about it ever. She could talk about it because it is a big part or community.
$10 from Miles Kinslow to say, hey guys, a few months ago, there were people assaulting Tesla owners because of Democrats demonizing Elon Musk. The Democrats need to call this out and stop calling everyone Nazis. The Democrats have called it out. We have called it out over and over and over again. And it does need to stop. If you are out there and you are watching my show, political violence is not okay. Stop doing it. We don't engage with words that we don't like with fists or bullets. We engage with other words. And no, if I think someone's a Nazi, I'm going to call him a Nazi. I'm just going to speak the truth, no matter what cultural peccadillos or anything like are about that. But $2 from Kick Nostanza says, "Does Tali?"
There's a chat. There's a chat going, Drew, fix your shitty country first before talking about ours. Okay, say that to a Somalian then. You'll never say that to a Somalian. You only say that to a white Australian.
If I had a Somalian here on my channel trying to talk about heritage Americans, I'd tell them that to their face. I bet you $100 I would. Okay. Find one for me, okay?
I didn't even say necessarily heritage Americans. I was just saying that migrants should be more respectful to the people who...
Okay, you were making some heritage American talking points there. Okay, $5 from Das Vidania. In a list of top 10 states that lead in violent crime rate, 7 of them are Republican states, 1 is purple, and 2 are Democrats. $10 from Robert Paulson. I'm just going to blast through these so we can, because I know you have limited time, and I want to get to callers. $10 from Robert Paulson to say, dude is doing the thing. The right makes a boogeyman that is fake and then gets outraged at the fake thing, then attributes the fake thing to the people who they don't like. It's a meme. $5 from Alexander Rin. This guy lives in his feelings. His entire outlook is based on how something makes him feel. Your family history doesn't make you an American. True. €2 from Dave Timmerman to say, Tali, being frustrated with Trump is not enough. Aeon for $10. It's vital to call out harms all sides in America. Please note that racism for X wasn't an idea that had to be fought for. So obviously, when it seems people nod to such sentiments today, it's a deeply scary echo. $5 from Alexander Rin to say, if you allow a government to make you afraid of your own country, man, and to give up of your own countrymen and to give up your rights, you're not an American or a patriot. $5 more from Alexander Rin say, unfortunately, much like rich families, the people who are born here don't understand what they have nor care enough to try and keep it. Immigrants do. Zephyr Hash, 6-month membership. Did that Groyper help build the country? No. $5 from Caleb. Whick claims a Groyper is un-American because of his ideals, but Ilhan Omar can't be considered un-American because of her ideals. She can if we compare them. I am sure that there are people who are more American out there than Ilhan Omar. But I know that Ilhan Omar is more American than a Groyper. Okay, there's a spectrum here. $10 from Alexander Rin. No, Drew, this is where you're wrong. These people didn't build up this country. They inherited it. They're not here to make it better for everyone. They're here to drain it for themselves. $10 from Zephyr Hash. No immigrant likes their nation more than America, but would like to retain their cultural connection to their home. That doesn't make them less America. Most people can hold many cultural values. $10 from Landon Stewart. The problem is no group built this country, but this has been a collab between Black slaves, Chinese immigrants, Irish, British, Italians, etc. No one group has built this to be grateful per se. $10 from Malevolent. Wick TV. If you get to this, can you ask the Drew if Mehdi Hassan is an American or Mexican? You already answered that one.
Already.
Yeah. $2 Zephyr Hash. MAGA didn't build this country. They're destroying it. $5 Testicle Johnson. Canadian dollars. America was built by Muslims for Muslims. Okay. $5 from Zephyr Hash. Did Lincoln...
Everyone agrees here. Ilhan Omar is the one who built up America.
True. Zephyr Hash. Did Lincoln hate America when he ended the 200-year-old foundational tradition of slavery? $10 from Landon Stewart. We're almost done. We got 3 more. Bad. 3 more. Okay. Landon Stewart. This is a long storied history of Irish, Italians, Blacks, Chinese hating America and trying to hold on to their cultures, bringing us additions to our culture that are inseparable from our country. $10 more from Alexander Rin. Say people who hate the country don't become citizens. Those who that become citizens do so because they love the country. Them hating what America has become in the last 8 years could be reasonable, no? And then finally, $2 from Concro to say Drew is giving high cholesterol blood and soil. Okay. Let's bring on some callers. One at a time. You got about a short window here, buddy. So ask your question, be concise, and then we'll move on.
I've got about 25 more minutes before I have to head.
Yep.
Hey, Norris.
Drew. Yeah, what's going on, Tali? Do you think a migrant should be treated differently than a born citizen?
No, not necessarily. If they're a legal citizen, they should be treated. They should have all the same legal rights as other citizens. All I'm talking about is in terms of the culture and in terms of moral. I think culturally, morally, we should have this discussion. I think migrants should be told that they should be a bit more respectful to the people who built up the country before they arrived.
Okay, and then I got one more question for you. you think that a migrant needs to have a certain view before like immigrating to that country, correct?
Well, they shouldn't hate the country that they're migrating to. I think that's pretty basic, isn't it?
How is that defined exactly? According to who? How is it defined hating a country? So right now, the Trump administration, right, would probably say, well, if you hate Trump, that's hating America right now.
I don't define it in that way at all. I'm talking about people who
hate America. The people that would be defining that would be the government, right?
I'll give you a good example. Mahmoud Khalil, who literally went to protest saying that the American empire should be dismantled and America is the most racist, disgusting country in the entire world. That's what I'm talking about.
MAGA thinks the American empire should be dismantled. They want to be isolationists again.
Yes, they're America first.
But their whole thing. Their whole thing is. So people like Mahmoud Khalil are like, the Western civilization is racist to the core. They don't like white people. They should all be dismantled. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, it's like contempt for the people who are the majority population of the country, contempt for their history, contempt for their culture. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yes, but what culture?
One more question.
History,
I'm just giving you one more, then we got to cycle. Sorry, buddy.
Okay.
I'll give you an example, right? If a migrant hates white Americans and white American culture, they shouldn't migrate to America.
But it's not just white Americans who are in this country.
And likewise as well. And likewise as well. If a migrant were to hate African Americans and hate African American culture, they shouldn't migrate to the country because African Americans are part of the American culture for 400 years. So it's not actually a race thing for me. I'm just saying the majority population. If you're against the majority of the population of the country you're moving to, I think that's wrong. I think it's morally wrong.
Okay. North. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
I did say as well. I don't think migrants should move to America if they hate black people. That's pretty fair. I'm not being racist here. It's not a race thing for me. If you're a migrant,
should migrants move to this country if they hate immigrants? Like, what if they want to move this country and shut down our borders? You think they should be able to?
They should. People who migrate to the country should actually pull up the border behind them. Migrants should not say that they support open borders forever. So my family, for example,
I didn't ask about whether they support open borders, right? That's a different thing.
Well, I'm saying not hate immigrants, but if they want to lower migration, I think every migrant who comes to a country should have a stance that is low migration because I think it's wrong to come to the country and then demand high immigration forever.
Gather Old, you're up.
Yeah, I had a question for Drew. I was wondering if you're intentionally misrepresenting the AOC tweet that you posted earlier today, or if you just didn't understand it.
No, I'm not misrepresenting it. Tell me how I'm misrepresenting it.
Okay, what is your interpretation? Is your interpretation here that like she should have brought up George Floyd whenever that happened?
No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think it's hypocritical that when a left wing, like, let me explain, right? The left broadly made George Floyd into a left wing martyr. There was a lot of deification that took place. There were murals everywhere. There was the funeral with the golden casket. The mayor of Minneapolis was crying next to the golden casket. The left really made this into a huge left wing thing, right? And then a very famous right-wing political commentator is shot and murdered in the street. And the first instance by people like AOC, they go, okay, we don't like the death, but let's list all the ways in which she was an evil person. I think that's wrong.
Why do you think that she listed those?
Because she's basically saying it's almost like she's saying that he's a horrible person and it's good that he's no longer here. She might disagree with the way it happened. I don't think she actually wants him to be killed, but she obviously hates him and she thinks that people should be basically happy that he's no longer here. That's what I think.
Well, that's not true at all. She explicitly says in that full clip, whenever she says that she condemns the act, she disavows the violence. She says that she is going to continue to pray for Mr. Kirk's family and the loved ones in the wake of the terrible act, correct? And then she says that we can come together as a country to denounce the horror of this killing.
I'm grieving, but he's evil. No, that's bullshit.
And she explicitly says that she's standing against this. She's standing against this attempt from the Trump administration to use this as an overreach to our fundamental rights as Americans.
Okay, let me give you.
Isn't that more anti-American than Ilhan Omar?
No. Let me give you an example, right? So
you think this is more American?
I'm responding.
Let him respond. Let him go.
Okay. Imagine your father is shot dead in the street, murdered, and someone comes out and says, "Listen, I'm grieving for you and your loved ones. I disavow the murder, but let's list all the ways that your father was a horrible person. He was a tax cheat. He cheated on your wife. He did all this sort of thing. Let's list in the Congress of the United States all the ways in which he's bad. Would you really think, wow, this person's so respectful of my grief? Of course not, man. We can see through it. It's pretty obvious. She has a lot of contempt for this guy who was just murdered.
So, Drew, I agree with you. I'm going to say really quickly that I made the same argument like last week or whenever we talked about this, or actually it was on Adam and Stitch when Whick and I went on to Adam and Stitch, that I also don't like the people who need to follow it up. It feels like a virtue signal almost, like people feel like they're not allowed to condemn the murder unless they also condemn him, some people on the left, because they'll get in trouble for the people who are more extreme than them. I wish that we all had the sensibility about yes, letting people grieve, right, and not attacking people when they die. However, I don't even think it's such a partisan thing. I do think it's more of a, well, I can't even say it's more of a left-wing thing because I've just spent so much more time on the left, but this is something that I've seen people on the left do to other people on the left. For example, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, naturally, I remember being horrified, and I was pretty far left at this point, by how many people, right when she died, were saying like, like, we're not going to whitewash her.
There are people
history,
on the right right now that think Israel did it. Right? They think Israel did it. So to say this is a left wing thing is just not true.
Hold on, Whick. See, this is that's such an yes. There are people who think that Israel did it. And
on the right, who are specifically pushing this narrative,
I agree.
Look,
those people
I agree with the caller in that the people that are using this
are my enemy.
I think
my enemy,
sure.
They see me as their enemy.
But
I agree with you. And hold on, and I even caveated it, Whick, with saying I can't say actually. I even before you got defensive like that, I said I can't even say that this is a left-wing thing exclusively. All I can say is from my experience when I spent so much time on the left. So I even made that caveat before I spoke and said that this is a thing that some people.
Okay, but this is in the context of AOC's comments.
Some people are callous. Yes, and my point is that I don't think it was necessarily because they want the person to die or because it's a partisan thing. What I'm saying is I've seen people on the left do this to other people on the left, people who all of us here would have respect for, and immediately in the wake of their death, we're saying, well, I'm not going to whitewash this and that because she did this against Native American people and she did this wrong thing and whatever, and she said that Roe shouldn't have continued on. Like, there are people who just don't respect the grieving process after someone's death, and I wish that we had a better culture around that, but we
nothing wrong.
We cannot
there's nothing wrong with AOC's comments. I think that it's okay, especially to oppose a bill that is trying to basically make him into a saint, to say this guy's not a saint.
Yes, definitely.
We oppose this. We oppose this senseless violence.
Crazy.
We come together to condemn it entirely. But to use this opportunity to try to make him into something he wasn't, to some sort of martyr, is just silly.
Wait, did anyone on the
left say something he wasn't? For a lot of people, that is what he is. What they shouldn't do, and what you should absolutely speak against, is trying to make any type of make it illegal to speak badly about.
The Charlie Kirk
anything
Act,
like that is completely out of yes, exactly. That's what you should be speaking out against. But saying like we're not going to let him become a martyr, he is a martyr to a lot of people. That is who he is to a lot of people. A lot of people loved and respected him. People are allowed to view these things differently. Isn't that the whole point of allowing people like AOC to say what she wants to say?
To be clear, it's not about just him becoming a martyr. It's him becoming a martyr and then using that justification to infringe on our rights, which is again West American.
I agree.
But Drew doesn't acknowledge that. Drew doesn't acknowledge that. He's going to virtue signal. He's going to virtue signal about how inhumane it is for somebody to hear somebody make comments about their father after you have Charlie Kirk making fun of Paul Pelosi immediately after the attack. So spare me.
That was wrong. That was wrong. I condemn that fully. But
did you have the same? Did you have the same energy for that?
Yeah, I did. If you actually go back to my tweets, I smashed.
Did you? Did you really?
Yeah,
you mean like how you had the same energy for the Minnesota Senators?
Yeah, and I had multiple tweets as well condemning Minnesota. So
no, you had one. You had one the day after.
Energy, because some things are bigger stories. Some things make a bigger impact. People are talking about.
They can be bigger stories, but the point is that if there's such a disproportionate coverage of it, then it shows that he doesn't really give a fuck about his principles that he says.
You can stand,
but he doesn't.
You can stand principally against something, and that's not necessarily measured by how much you said at that moment in time, especially.
But I'm saying that Drew does not.
Amount of impact.
But I did. I was fully against. I had dozens of tweets condemning Republicans over the Paul Pelosi thing. I thought that was disgusting.
What about for one? I searched your X page. You can feel free to link or whatever afterwards about the Paul Pelosi attack. And then for two, whenever I look at the Minnesota tweets that you supposedly had, you had one the day after that was commenting. You had one tweet the day after talking about the appearance of the killer. Do you acknowledge that? You had one tweet right after.
I said it was disgusting and terrifying. And if you go through my Twitter,
you mean was that the tweet that you made 8 days ago in response to Sockdown Left, or is that another tweet?
No. Dude, when the Minnesota thing happened, I said it's literally terrifying. I said it's a terrifying thing for America.
You said the appearance of the killer.
Yeah, it was fucking terrifying. What's wrong
the
with that?
appearance was not the act itself.
One more thing, Gather, then we got to cycle.
That's semantics. That's so semantics. Of course, I was talking about the actual act itself. I wasn't just saying that the appearance of the killer was scary. I was saying that the actual killing was scary. Don't be so semantic. This is just bullshit.
I'll link it.
Okay.
That is such bullshit semantic. I was saying that the entire act was terrifying.
I haven't seen the tweet, so I cannot comment. So, bring on the next guy. You're live. What do you got?
And someone saying in the chat, I don't critique the right for making fun of the attacks. I'll say this right now. I condemn the fact that Charlie Kirk made fun of the Paul Pelosi's killing. Not killing, the hammer attack. I condemn the fact that Donald Trump Jr. made light of the hammer attack. I think it's disgusting. My mum is a Trump supporter. I remember I had fights with her over it. I said that was disgusting, okay? So this is my actual views. I do think it's disgusting.
Okay. But it's never enough because we spend a lot of time criticizing the left, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, of course.
But it's never enough when we condemn the left because this works both ways, Tali.
I agree. Okay. Well, I'm not, but do I ever come at you for insufficiently condemning the left?
You come at me for other we'll talk later.
I
caller.
just disagree with you about something.
Yeah, that's fine. And I disagree with you too on some things. Caller, please.
Of course.
Can we hear me?
Yes, what you got?
So I had two questions for Drew, but I do have to ask just the group. We understand there's a huge gulf of difference between people putting up murals for George Floyd and Congress creating a day of remembrance that will happen every year for
Congress passed a George Floyd Act. And
but
Charlie Kirk at the end of the day, Charlie Kirk at the end of the day represents 78 million Americans who voted for Trump. He had the same views as 78 million Americans who voted for Trump.
Things. The George Floyd Act was like actual legislation to reform, like I'm trying to remember specifics, but broadly like law enforcement. Like the Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk was to be like, look at this person who died. Now we are going to remember it. I can understand why someone on the left particularly.
How dare America? Can I respond? How dare America respond by making a day of memorial to memorialize the most high-profile act of political violence in basically a generation? That's the reality. It's the most high-profile political assassination in America in a generation.
There are still American generations that remember, like MLK getting assassinated. Man,
yeah,
like people are older than us. They don't know what to tell you.
This is one of the worst acts of political violence in America in decades since the MLK killings. That is literally the truth, and that's why that's why there should be a national day of memorial, because it's such a huge, high-profile act of killing, and it should be condemned. It doesn't matter whether he was right-wing. It doesn't matter if he had conservative views. He shouldn't have been shot, and it's the most high-profile. It's the most high-profile political assassination in America in decades.
Drew, hold on. Drew, in honor of Whick, take the white pill, okay? Because despite all of the callers who are really upset about this and all the chatters who are really upset about it, the Senate, all of the Democrats in the Senate passed unanimously to approve the Charlie Kirk Day of Remembrance because they see some value, even if they don't appreciate any of the things that he ever said. They see some value in what he represented in trying to, maintain discourse and dialogue.
And let me say,
they saw it as reaching across. That's
So take the white pill, Drew.
Look, I was never even a fan of Charlie Kirk in his life, but the fact that he was the most high-profile political assassination in America in decades is a really significant fact that needs to be memorialized by American society to draw a line under this act and say it should never happen again. It's pretty obvious.
I'm just going to say we don't have an RFK Day, and he was actually in government.
Dude, that's probably because in the late 1960s there were literally dozens of assassinations. There was RFK, MLK, there was JFK in the early 60s. The 60s were filled with so many different assassinations.
Would you be in favor of the Democrats putting together a Hortman Day where they put remembrance for Hortman? You'd be okay with that?
You know what should actually probably be done? There should probably be just a day against political violence non-stop. Full stop. And it should just be against Hortman, against Horseman, the attack on Pelosi, against Charlie Kirk killing, the attack on Josh Shapiro's mansion.
And a tradition on that day.
Just to be clear.
A tradition on that day, right, where the schools and whatever go out and read the names.
Yeah, and Charlie, but just to be clear. It was horrific what happened to Charlie Kirk. It should never happen. But at the end of the day, he's just a podcaster, bro. Like that's all.
Yeah, MLK would have been a podcaster, dude. Everyone would have been.
Charlie Kirk was just obviously more.
Obama has a podcast. Like, dude, Michelle Obama and Barack Obama have a podcast these days. Everyone has a podcast these days. Okay, it doesn't mean.
I don't want to get hung up on this. This is not like my main question.
Okay, what was your main question quickly? Because he has a limited amount of time, and I want to respect his time.
I appreciate that. I'll move fast. I'll cut out my last question. I'll just be for this one. Drew, you outlined this idea that like Americans, that immigrants need to be more deferential to Americans that have been here longer.
Just be respectful. Just be respectful.
Okay, respectful. Or that, and you also laid out this idea that like Americans, there can be someone who is more American based on how long their family has been here. That was a thing you did outline, correct?
I do think, I'll give you an example. It's not based on race. If an African American guy in America has 400 years of history in the country, I think that they're more American than Mehdi Hassan.
Okay, so I'm saying you're basing.
I'll give you an example,
time.
Dude,
I don't need an example. Yeah, if you're basing enough time, it's so like if someone's family been here longer, that person's more American than someone whose family who has not been here longer.
Yeah. Let me explain. Okay, I'll give you two examples.
Right? You gave a bunch of examples. And I know we have limited time. I just want to sort of get to my question. Like, okay, let's say that there's someone whose family came here on the Mayflower. They're about as old American as you can get. Literally the Pilgrims got here in the Mayflower. They can still be
anti-American. They can still be anti-American. That's my answer to your question. I know what you're going to say.
Okay, let's say that person's family, like further down the line, it's 1861. They're part of the Confederacy. Then Civil War is over. They get their citizenship back. America basically treated getting citizenship back as if like you never really lost it. That was part of our like healing post the Civil War. Is that person's family? Is that person more American than someone whose family came here in like 1855?
I don't think it should be like. If you have,
I think Drew thinks there are multiple dimensions because you're obviously talking about you're making the point that someone could have been here. I mean, I am translating for him, but this is obviously what he's saying. He is literally saying, yes, someone could be here since the inception, come here on the Mayflower and be completely anti-American and be someone who doesn't respect and is working against the American project and
Tali,
the
Drew whisperer.
He's saying heritage, participation in that culture, in that society, and respect for that culture and society are all different.
I'll give you an example, right?
Let Drew talk for Drew. Drew can speak for himself.
That is what he's saying. People are just uncharitable.
Tali, thank you. That was very helpful. I want to say, right? Okay. Look at Calla Walsh. I don't know how long her family's been in the country. She's white American, Irish, probably has more than 100 years of history in the country. I would say Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm not even a fan of Vivek Ramaswamy, but he's probably more he's a much more patriotic American than like Calla Walsh, who's that crazy girl who literally says, kill America, destroy America, let's have 9/11s. That's what Calla Walsh believes. She's like this hardcore Iran supporter who literally went to Iran, participated in their Holocaust denial conference and stuff like that. Jackson Hinkle is, I don't know how long his family's been in the country, but he's a white American. He's probably got some generations of history in the country. I would say that like a new migrant who's actually patriotic is more patriotic than Jackson Hinkle, for example. So for me, it's not just. So it's not just. So
okay, thank you, Colin,
I want to make clear. There's multiple dimensions of it.
I'll appreciate your
It's multiple dimensions. It's not just race. It's not just the amount of time in the country. Because
you're making a moral argument.
Last caller.
You've already conceded the point 100 times over that citizenship is what actually makes you literally an American.
Last caller. Last caller.
Trying to change that.
Last caller.
Yeah. My live. Sorry. All right. So I have the stream muted or whatever, but I just wanted to make a statement that the only thing that actually matters right now is upholding the Constitution itself. Like nothing else matters. That's what makes you an American. Like,
do you guys agree with the Second Amendment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. There are a lot of leftists who want to change that part of the Constitution, right?
So I think a lot of leftists are actually very pro-gun.
Not a lot in Whick's community.
Not. Yeah. This is the problem. As we said in the beginning, I think you're taking a very small percentage of people and extrapolating out. Though I will agree that being anti-Second Amendment is more popular than being pro-celebration of death. That is true, right? That is, it's a pretty common Democratic position. But I will say this, Conroe.
I do want to say I admire the American Constitution. I think the American Constitution is beautiful. It's a beautiful document. There are some parts to it that like are not perfect. I think a lot of Americans would say there are heaps of Americans who would say that.
That's what amendments and all that are for.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Yeah. So we can amend it. But if there are people that literally just want to take a torch to the Constitution and just get rid of parts of it without any kind of, yes. And you're putting your support more.
I condemn Sam Hyde type people.
Your condemnation really doesn't mean anything because if you're just going to support the side that is looking to do that instead of doing it through, actual legal means.
I never even said I'm MAGA.
Yeah,
no,
it's not so
shifting
binary.
Toward the right. You've been shifting to the right, and you're doing all the stupid.
Connor is a conservative who's
it's not bad to be. Yeah, it's not bad to be conservative. It's not bad to be on the right. There's nothing inherently wrong or immoral about being on the right. So someone moving to the right and also condemning anti-constitutional, anti-republican movements within the right wing. That's completely consistent.
Not saying that.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I looked at them.
When you're boosting, no. When you're boosting, like the kind of arguments and all of that, like, sorry, when you're boosting like those kind of arguments, like with the George Floyd shit, like it's not a 1-to-1 the way.
What
like
argument?
we
It doesn't need to be a 1-to-1. He doesn't need to treat it like a 1-to-1.
Okay.
Tali, like, let me just
let him get it out.
Let me speak to him. So, like, when you're trying to compare what AOC is doing with Kirk on like giving her statement, still condemning the violence and all of that, it's a lot different than the way the people were treated, like how George Floyd was. Like when people were doing that.
There were so many people who were sacked from their jobs after Black Lives Matter because they said, "Oh, George Floyd held a gun to."
They were bringing up his past in order to try to justify the fact that he was killed. Which
I think a lot of leftists are doing with Charlie Kirk. A lot of leftists are doing that with Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, that's bad. But you're doing the same argument that the right was doing, the left's doing now with Kirk. Like, you don't see that?
How? I don't think it's good that Charlie Kirk was. I mean, I don't think it's good that George Floyd was killed. I think it's bad that he was killed.
Why bring up his past then?
Why bring up Charlie Kirk's past? I'm only bringing up George Floyd's past because you bring up
they're literally trying to like absolve him of all of his like sins and turn him to like a Christ-like figure in order to.
Okay, that's what people did about George Floyd. That's exactly what people on the left did about George Floyd. That's literally
except that they're using the death of Kirk to just completely get rid of rights.
People use the death of George Floyd to go on massive riots across America and just do $10 billion in economic damage.
Yeah, that was bad.
To let you go, Conroe.
You should say that it's bad. All right,
Conroe. Okay, I'll talk to you later, buddy. Okay.
I could do two more.
Two more, gang. Two more. If you get into the backstage now, they all cleared out after I said it was the last one, unfortunately. But jump in real quick and we'll get you. But I guess like while we wait, just give your kind of closing thoughts, Drew. I will get with you when or Tali will get you with someone will get with you. And we'll schedule time for Erudite and you and me to have a conversation.
Yeah, I remember I did a debate with Erudite. I remember I debated Erudite with Pisco, very annoying person. Yeah, have Tali in there as well. It'd be good.
I will be there too.
Okay, we can do that if you'd like.
Okay. All right,
I find Erudite to be a really annoying person. She is a communist.
I really like Kyla.
Hold on, whoa. Kyla is not a communist.
Wait, am I thinking of the right person? Hang on.
No, you're taking a straighter-aid. She's a communist. That's a different person.
Oh, sorry, I was talking about straight.
Okay, we were about to have another issue. Okay, Kyla is not.
Oh, sorry, I was confusing her for straight rate. Sorry, no, straight rate's like
wow. Okay, I'll let her know that you did that. But go ahead. Go ahead, caller.
So I'm sorry for that. It was Straight Rate who's a communist. I hate Straight Rate.
I was going to say Drew completely misrepresented the Ilhan Omar quote. She was talking in reference to being repeatedly asked about female genital mutilation because she was a Muslim member of office. That's why
I read it.
She was appalled by it.
No. I read it. I read that part to it too. She couldn't just straight up say female genital mutilation is bad. She had to say, "Oh no, I'm only being asked this because I'm a Muslim." So it was just.
Well, she had put out previous statements many times, and if you're asked repeatedly again and again, simply because she's a Muslim member, it's going to be appalling to be repeatedly asked that question. I understand that, but because my actual question,
she's not strong enough in actually opposing it.
All right, my actual question is,
please.
Okay.
You say Mehdi Hassan's not. I'm not actually. You wouldn't consider him an American, right?
No.
What is your threshold? What is your threshold for what is an American? What fits that? If it's not citizenship,
you have to be patriotic and love America, and love the people of America too, not just the Constitution. You also have to love the people of America, and I think Mehdi Hassan has a lot of racial resentment.
No, you don't. You have to love the Constitution.
Again, he's talking about a moral judgment. You guys are like.
And I understand this. I'm asking about the threshold because he said the other guys.
I'm talking about the moral threshold.
20v1 panel. He said that one guy was more American than Mehdi.
I didn't say he was more American than Mehdi. I wasn't saying he was a better American than Mehdi. I was just saying what I was objecting to was the fact that Mehdi said, "I'm just as American as a guy with 400 years of history in the country." And I think that he wouldn't have said that to an African American guy. I think he would have said that to an African American guy. I don't think he would have.
I think he would have.
I think leftists are. I think leftists are much more respectful to the fact that Black Americans are essentially indigenous to America after 400 years, but they're not really respectful to the fact that European Americans are after 400 years are the same thing.
I disagree.
Okay. Well, thank you for calling
that's
in.
my time.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
I do feel bad. I do feel bad for thinking that Erudite was straight away. I'm sorry for that.
That was
pretty funny.
Amazingly funny.
I was traumatized by doing that stupid debate with Straight Away and Pisco, where Straight Away is literally just a communist. I hate that shit.
Well, she says she's a communist, so yeah, she's a communist. Yes. She identifies.
I apologize to Erudite. I know she's not. I don't think
Erudite's gonna. I'll break it to her easy. Okay, I'll break it to her easy. Okay. With that said, Drew, we still disagree on a lot of things, but thank you for coming on. I do appreciate you being willing to come in and talk with us. Can you tell my audience where they can find you if they want to find you, where they can watch your stream, all that? Can you?
They all hate me. They all hate me. So
not all of them. There's some Drew defenders in my chat. I see them.
Yeah, I see the chat's about 80% kill Drew, but I appreciate. Look, I want to say Whick. You are a nice person, and thank you for having me on. And even though we have disagreements, like I do find you to be actually a nice person on the left. Unfortunately, a lot of people on the left are just evil these days. Like Destiny, for example, is full on fucking evil. Like I was the biggest Destiny fan for so long, and he's just straight up celebrating murder and just an evil person. It's really sad at this point. But Whick is actually a nice person, and Erudite I think is pretty nice. I've never really talked to her, but Straight Away is evil. She's a communist, and Pisco kind of nice, but he's a very annoying guy. People can follow me on Drew Pavlou.
What about Tali? Why doesn't Tali get a rating?
Oh, Tali. Well, Tali isn't really on the left anymore, I think. So it goes without saying that I like Tali and I like Tali's views, and I think
here's my brother in arms.
Yeah, exactly.
Where can people find you? Sorry, where can people find you?
Dark liberalism, dark classical liberalism, in a way.
Yes.
Where can people find you?
Yes. Oh yeah, they can find me at Drew Pavlou on Twitter, which is probably my main platform. I'm also on YouTube, and I do try to stream. I've done about like 100 streams over the past 6 months, so I do try to stream, but it has been a little bit less recently. But yeah, people go to my YouTube. They can go to my Twitter, Drew Pavlou, and they can go on Twitter and call me evil and say I'm fat and say kill Drew. I'm sure that will happen after this happens, but it's okay.
We
love debate. I love fighting people. I love fighting people on politics. So
okay, thank you for calling in, and I'll get with you, and we'll say bye bye. Say bye bye, Drew.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you, Whick. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tali.
Bye. Okay. What do you think, Tali? How'd that go?
Oh, it was a blast for me. You seemed pretty frustrated.
Yeah, a little bit. I think that I wasn't too concerned about some of his takes at first. I was like, okay, let's hear it. I didn't really get, you know what? I got so mad about the Heritage American stuff. I forgot to bring up the kids stuff. We'll do that with Erudite. Okay, we'll do that next time. Remind me, please. But that bothers me on a fundamental level. This idea that America is this blood and soil nation, and that someone who, again, I don't agree with Mehdi Hasan on a lot of things. Okay, I disagree with his foreign policy almost 100%. But to act as if he is any less American than any other citizens of this country is just straight up wrong. It's immoral. It's an immoral position to have, not just a legal, legally dubious position, but it is immoral. It is unbecoming of a liberal to say this about another American citizen. I don't care how long your family has been here.
That's probably just the way in which that I am not really considered to be liberal anymore, because I do think that there are like people who have generational heritage in the country and they should be respected. I mean, they helped build up the country. I don't think that countries should just basically be completely blank slates. And that's probably one way that I'm not really considered to be part of the liberal consensus anymore, because I don't think that you can just swap out the entire population of a country and it will be the exact same. As long as people say that they support the Constitution, it would completely result in a completely different America. You can't just completely swap out populations and just say it's the exact same, because people are not blank slates. People are not full blank slates. But anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to release my Hasan video now. every single thing there was a problem for them was like, she said a moral problem, and again, everything moral is subjected to each person, so their whole argument crumbled. That's why Charlie Kirk could debate all of them in a debate, and they hate it. That's why they hate him. Yeah, it's interesting debate. I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much.